Yes, man! What the Rock is cooking.
And what you gonna do, Macho Man, when the whole world full of Hulkamaniacs destroy you? Because everyone loves the acclaim! Now scissor me, Daddy! Oh, there it is!
And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so.
But the cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
But I'm better than you.
And you know it!
Hello and welcome to Friday Nightmares One Night Stand. I am your host, Mr. Smoke Show Crawford, King of the Ring, the sexy man in the squared circle, ready to rip his clothes off because I got some sexy guests with me tonight. With me, as always, is...
I'll do my introduction at the end. But for those of you who listen, it is Heather Powell, but I have a very special wrestling name for this podcast. But we have with us probably the two kings of wrestling coming to us today. And he's known as Big Dong, Rob Humphreys from Slasher Radio and This Horror Life. And he's going to knock you out with his huge fucking cock tonight. Rob, hi.
I didn't know this was a family show.
Oh, it is. It
Yeah,
absolutely is. For Tim's family, who we're going to introduce shortly.
They can listen to whatever they want.
They can listen and do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And speaking, we have the fucking Thunder Down Under. You seen that Vegas show? I got something that's even fucking hotter for you. It's Tim Davis from Horror for Dummies and Wrestling for Dummies, who I refuse to go on that show because this show is superior by its own nature. What's going on, Tim?
Wow. All right. That's a really nice introduction. But if I may, I wouldn't mind just giving myself a little introduction, if that's all right with you.
You absolutely can. I just wanted to tell you were Thunder Down Under.
Thank you. I'm glad. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I am here coming to you from Wrestling for Dummies, which you can find on any podcasting stream right now. I am the reigning, defending, undisputed Wrestling for Dummies champion, Tim Davis. Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome.
And you can't teach that.
Holy shit! Holy shit! Holy shit! Holy shit!
And I am Heather Powell, also known as that bitch from the Friday Nightmares podcast. Originally, so I'm drinking red wine tonight. I was going to use my Horror for Dummy makeshift glass that I made, considering your like trademarks are soon going to be copyrighted and now you're not going to be able to sell anything. But instead, I used my I'm Not Always a Bitch. Just kidding. Go fuck yourself. On behalf of the nickname that you have given me, Tim, that I feel like I should just rock. Like, do you think, okay, if we were all wrestlers, would you be a heel or a face?
Heel, for sure.
Heel? What about you, Rob?
I'm a cunt.
You're a cunt? Actually, you know why? Because you're so nice as a person, you probably would play a really good heel.
Ask my wife that, but yes.
Why were you a cunt to her today? Were you like, no dick for you?
Well, that's why she's not here. She's locked in the cupboard.
Wow. You know what? Women just need to know their place, right, Rob?
Just like that movie Shut In, right?
As long as she's getting some cleaning done in there, it's fine.
Rob loves it when I tell him that I'm cleaning my house and I send him videos of me making sandwiches. It really gets him going. What about you, Rob? Would you be a face or a heel?
I think I would be a heel, but I would think that I was a face.
Oh, okay.
You know,
okay.
I would be that, like Cody Rhodes in his last bit in AEW, where he thought he was a face, but everyone hated him. That would be me.
That's fair. What about you, Scotty?
I think I would be a face. I I would be like kind of like a face like Danhausen, just really just goofy.
Well, who's supposed to be turning evil? Like
I'm
real
hoping
evil,
that's
right?
that's what the hints are leading to. I'm assuming bring
I've
back
always-
old heel Hausen.
right? When I was younger, I wanted to be a face because I looked up to like Miss Elizabeth, right? Like that was my woman at the time when I was a young wrestling fan. But now I don't know. Like I'm kind of angry. I am woke and I hate woke and I love being woke at all at the same time, right, Tim? And I am that bitch from Friday Nightmares that is looking to take down Wrestling for Dummies. So I don't know. I think I just get booed. I think no, you know what would be worse? I wouldn't even be booed. The crowd would be like stone silent when I came out. It would be like, I don't know, what's a match that had no reaction? You guys were saying when you watched AEW.
Oh yeah, Tony
like,
Storm and Jamie Hayter.
Oh,
that'd be me. Like,
that
and here's
crowd
right?
was dead.
Well, there was nobody there, as you were saying, right?
I
Rob?
know. It turns out, yeah,
Right?
there was no one in the building, but I'd never heard a wrestling show that quiet.
Which
That
proves
was
Tim's
nuts.
point.
Like
Right.
it's sad to the point where MJF had to go and like raise his hands and get the crowd ramped up when he's out there doing his fucking promo.
Yeah, it sounds like a WWE house show that I've been to before. Some of them are pretty fucking snoozers, but you expect that from a house show, not from a
Yeah.
television show, right? But we'll go around and we'll do a brief little introduction. So we have a couple of subtopics only to keep us on track. Like it's not just so we didn't go on some tangents about CM Punk or
I can't
How much-
imagine this group would get off track.
no, we're all super fucking professional. Like Tim's kind of like said it now that he's a solo cast. His own partner doesn't even want to work with him anymore. So it's the only
mean
way.
You mean the brains behind the show doesn't want to work with him anymore?
Wow.
He still writes it. He just
Wow, poor Tim. Tim, just know that you and I are actually friends off this. We're just heels on air. We're friends in real life.
I appreciate that. I love you.
See? See, Tim, I would turn my back on Scott and help Tim in the wrestling match. Like I would hit Scott with the chair. Then I'd make out with Tim in the ring just for an excuse to make out with Tim.
I love this.
I know. Tim and I are destined to be. If shit doesn't work out with his wife, I'm moving to Australia. I'll take on his 3 kids and punching seagulls. I'm sure we'll have a great time.
And then me and Rob will make love in the corner.
absolutely.
Rob's busy. He's got a lot of young ladies that he needs to court. Okay,
Including me.
Rob's a busy
Including me.
man.
Hello.
Including Scott. So I guess we'll start with you, Tim. You know, you have an awesome podcast. As much as we joke, I'm so happy you started it. I love listening to you. Even if I don't agree with you and you make me really angry, I still love listening to it. Can you tell us your history with professional wrestling and go back as like far as you feel comfortable or whatever you want to share?
Okay. Firstly, thank you. Thank you for giving some praise to the little shit that I do. I remember the exact match that I saw when I first started watching wrestling, but I was at a friend's birthday party and the birthday boy disappeared for a while and I went to go find him and he was sitting watching wrestling. And at the time it was WCW, I believe it was WCW Nitro. And I'm like, what is this? I knew nothing about wrestling before this. This was probably about 1997, around that time. And out came a guy named Bill Goldberg. And he's like, oh, this is wrestling. And I saw Bill Goldberg. It was one of his 1997, it's just when he started. So he was still doing the squash matches. The streak was probably not even started yet, but he was still just squashing people. And I remember just watching Goldberg, just looking at him, seeing his size, seeing his abilities and everything like that, and falling in love with it. And ever since then, I've just been infatuated with wrestling. I was always a WCW boy. I always thought that if you watched WWE, you were poison. You were the enemy. You know,
You were lame. You only like to lame wrestling.
I had friends who used to watch both, and I'm like, why are you watching WWF at the time? And they're like, oh, it's pretty much the same. Like, oh, do they have like tables being smashed? He's like, yeah. I knew nothing about WWF. I thought it was basically like UFC compared to WWE. And then when WCW went under, I obviously wanted to keep watching, so joined WWE, and then just continued watching until WWE pissed me off and AEW came into town. And I was late to AEW because I didn't really know how to watch AEW here in Australia. Until I researched it and found out it's actually really easy. And then when I started watching AEW, that was just reinvigorated my love for wrestling because they were doing crazy stuff over there. all these big names jumping ship, and unfortunately AEW has not been as great as when I first started it, but we'll get into that. But yeah, that's basically my journey. I started watching in 1997 and I haven't stopped until now.
That's really cool, Tim. Did you ever watch Ring of Honor, TNA, New Japan, ECW, ECW?
So ECW, all those other promotions, they were really hard to find here in Australia.
I can imagine they were tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, they're airing ECW now.
Yeah.
So.
Now it's made a comeback, like old ECW, like true ECW, like Paul Heyman shit, not when Vince brought it and made it. Right.
Yeah. It's really weird watching Paul Heyman on ECW with his long hair and then watching WWE. I'm like, wait, how come this is today? And, but anyway, yeah, I could never find Ring of Honor. I could never find Impact. I read up about Impact because of the star power it had at the time. But yeah, I never really watched it. I was more strictly WWE.
I get that. It's what you can find, right? Like that's kind
exactly.
of sometimes as a wrestling fan, what you have access to, right?
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
now, Rob, I know you're a couple years older than us, like 1 or 2.
Yeah,
so you might have a longer history with wrestling, but would you like to share your history?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's probably longer. And it's not all that different than Tim's. I was at a friend's house and he was watching wrestling. I go back years before Tim because I saw Roddy Piper smack Jimmy Snuka in the head with a coconut. And I was like,
That's cool.
I'm in. All right. And I watched wrestling from that point on until about 1992 or so. I went to WrestleMania 8. And after that, I just stopped watching. I don't know. I was like 16 years old. I found girls and I was done. And it wasn't until really a handful of years ago, my son came home from school one day. I guess he would have been probably about 10 years old. So it was probably about 5 years ago. And he was like, hey, can we watch wrestling? So I guess he'd heard some kids at school talking about it or whatever. He said, can we watch wrestling? I'm like, hell yeah, we can watch wrestling.
That's awesome.
And we started watching it. Now I think I'm into it more than he is. Like AEW is really what kept me in it. Once they started, I started watching AEW pretty regularly. About the time he kind of lost interest in it. So in WWE, it's just not for me, really. I think if they were still the only game in town, I probably would have checked out when he did.
Legit, and that's how a lot of people feel. So.
Yeah, but we still have fun. We've been to All Out 2 years in a row, and that's a good time, and stuff like that. Like he still kind of watches, but not really. And I watch Dynamite every week now. That's pretty much my history with it. I missed a lot of stuff that people talk about though. Like I missed all the Monday Night War stuff. I missed all the Attitude Era stuff. Like I just wasn't a thing for me.
Oh man, there was a lot of tits. You would have liked that shit. There was panty matches out the fucking ass.
I got the network. I'll have to go back and check it out.
You will. Like there's a lot of boobies.
Yeah.
I would have. Sorry, Tim. Go ahead.
You're right. No, sorry, Rob. You can go back and watch. I mean, I'm going back and watching WCW again from 1997. I started doing that because WWE was just annoying me, and I wasn't watching AEW at the time. So I thought, fuck it, I'm going back in the glory days just to watch something. And I haven't stopped watching WCW. I'm just going back to I started at 96. I'm now in 97 and I'm just going back and watching it. It's still really cool. So you can do that.
And that was the prime time too, right? Those were great years.
And I thought about doing that, but then I always remember what Bret Hart says about Bill Goldberg. And I'm like, I don't want to watch him.
And this is an area where Tim is 100% right. I love Bret Hart, but I was like, holy fuck, Tim's right. This guy brings him up anytime he gets a chance to.
It is. It's gotten to the point now to where I just find it absolutely hilarious. Like he will not pass up a chance to mention Bill, even when it doesn't have anything to do with Goldberg. Sometimes he'll spin it around just to bring it up.
And like his brother died tragically in the ring. And I don't know if you guys have seen The Dark Side of the Ring. That episode makes me angry. Yeah. Like, Owen Hart was asked to do and the equipment wasn't checked. Like there was problems. I'd be more pissed about that than I would be about Goldberg. But anyway, I was going to ask you, Rob, I would have assumed you would have been an ECW guy. I just feel like you're on the ball with stuff. You're kind of anti-pop culture, that you would have been watching that shit. I'm shocked that you weren't, to be honest.
I didn't even know it existed until I started watching again and I heard people talking about it. Just, wasn't on my radar anymore.
I could have seen you loving fucking Sandman and going EC Dub and what the fuck. I could have seen you in those crowds. It's a shame, Rob. We'll just have to go back in time and put you there.
I'll have to go check it out.
right?
Yeah, it's on.
You might dig it.
I'm sure all that's still available on although we don't have the network here in the States anymore, so
Oh,
you can
yeah.
find it on Peacock.
Yeah, it's
Oh.
on Peacock, not Peacock
Yeah,
bought out
it's
WWE.
terrible.
Yeah, quick question about that. With Peacock, does it have like everything that the network has? Like, does it have the ECW, the WCW, and all that?
That's a good
know.
question, because they said by the time it launched, they were hoping to have everything on there and available, but I don't
Yeah.
think they did, and I don't know how far along they've gotten, if they finally finished it or not.
Because I've heard from other wrestling podcasters that they dulled it down a lot. They took a lot out. And like I was watching Halloween Havoc from '97 last night, and the Nitro before that, and they still had like Chris Benoit matches on it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
So-
NBC was going through and cutting a lot of stuff that they deemed inappropriate now too. So,
So the entire Attitude Era is now
Yeah.
cut.
so yeah, a lot of that stuff was getting cut out, and so who knows?
Wow. So they had basically up to like 1987, and then they've just cut everything like today. Scotty, what about you? What's your history?
My history, shit. Like, I think everybody knows, like, through our podcast and through like the interview Tim did with me, that my stepdad was a video distributor for like a company, and we always got all these VHSs he'd bring home with me, or bring home, and we'd have this like huge like movie library. And I didn't have cable at the time, so I knew nothing about wrestling, you know, being a young kid in the 80s. Then one day he brought home the VHS tape. I think I was probably like 7 years old, and he brought the VHS tape of WrestleMania 3 home. And I watched that and instantly fell in fucking love with wrestling, was completely hooked, like watched for several years, like just like whenever I could get my hands on a VHS, or when I go to my grandma's house, I'd watch there because she had cable. And got to the point where I was buying all the wrestling action figures back in the day that didn't have movable arms. They were just like freaking stiff, and you could just
You would
turn
just
their
mash them
body sideways.
together and like
Yes.
pretend that they were wrestling.
I remember those. Those were great.
Yeah.
They have those thick plastic giant figures, and
Those things are worth a fortune now. By the
I
way.
bet.
know. I so
Yeah.
wish I still had them, because I had I had probably a good 30 of them. But yeah, I was a huge fan like throughout the 80s, like watching what I could, like when I could. And then, you know, eventually those VHS tapes stopped coming to our house. So I kind of fell out through the beginning of the Attitude Era. Then I'd say it was around like late 90s, early 2000s, working at the restaurant that I worked at. Us cooks would always finish up, and we'd go sit at the bar at the restaurant, get some drinks, and we would always watch Monday Night Raw. And it was, I think, the tail end of the Attitude Era. Like, because I'm not sure when the eras like started changing or whatnot, but I know there was a lot of the bra and panty matches still, and Rob Van Dam was around, but Stone Cold was not. Goldberg was like on the last little bit before he went. And I watched that for probably about 2 years, got so hooked into it, was going to my buddy's house for pay-per-views, and we were betting on who was going to win each match and actually throwing down money and shit, and just smoking weed and drinking and having a great time with it. And then that once again faded away because I left that job and I lost access to any form of wrestling until I met you, Heather. And then you started telling me
life got better.
right? You started telling me about AEW. Like, I had been hearing about it. Well, actually, I should go back. Before I met you, I also listened to a lot of podcasts that covered Ring of Honor, New Japan, GCW. And I would catch some of those matches on YouTube because I was just kind of digging up, because I once again had no way of watching them. So I would just kind of see what I could look up like through the podcasts I listened to, and just kind of watch some videos. And that's where I first learned about Danhausen and the Briscoe brothers and all that shit, and about, well, Dean Ambrose and John Moxley, because I knew him as John Moxley. But like get into that a little bit. And then, yeah, as soon as I met you, you told me about AEW, which I'd been hearing a lot about through Facebook and all this stuff, and finally found access to it. And now I have been like addicted to wrestling for the last fucking 3 years, like watching Dynamite any chance I get, watching Rampage every so often. Now have a good buddy of mine that hosts pay-per-view AEW events. So I always go to his place now to watch them live. So, and then, you know, listening to Tim's podcast with Wrestling for Dummies, and just like getting hooked into that, and like just kind of like theorizing, okay, who's going to win this match? All right, who's going to win this match? And just kind of really getting into the whole prediction stuff. And yeah, now as MJF would say, I am a total fucking mark.
Yes, you are. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Fuck no.
I'll give a quick, I started watching wrestling at 4 years old with my dad, and I was hooked. Every pay-per-view, my parents would either take me to a bar, which probably was a questionable decision because I didn't see a bar fight break out where two guys pool sticks over top of each other, which
Nice.
was real wrestling.
Man.
And then I would also watch pay-per-views at my parents' friend's house. And when Hulk Hogan retired, Rob, I'm sure you remember this, I fucking cried. Like I bawled like crazy because I thought he was done. Then I realized in wrestling, there's no such thing as really retirement. They
Yeah.
always come back.
Yeah.
So I'd probably been to over 30 live wrestling events, at least close to 6 or 7 pay-per-views. Obviously we used to have a lot of them come up for WWE to Toronto. Unforgiven was probably the biggest one I went to, which is where Edge and John Cena faced each other. And I thought John Cena was going to get beat up because even though Edge was a heel, when he came up, that fucking arena exploded when he came out. People just, hometown boy, right? Like it was electric. I watched WCW as well, Tim. I agree. There was like this war between which one was better. It's like you couldn't like both.
Oh,
And
definitely.
I think at the time I sided with WWE because I think it was a little more, I'm going to say female friendly in the sense that it was brighter, it wasn't as dingy. But now I have a much more love and appreciation for WCW, especially with NWO and the creation of that.
Yeah.
I've read a lot of books. Eric Bischoff, I think, is a brilliant mind in wrestling. I love his book. Rob's not a fan, and I respect, but I do enjoy what he had to say about the industry in his book. I've read World Wrestling Insanity for anyone who wants to read behind the lines and shit that happened backstage. It's some pretty like interesting shit. I listened to a couple of different podcasts, Chris Jericho's podcast, Eric Bischoff's podcast as well, just to get like a better idea. But yeah, when I was in grade 3, I used to bring a wrestling magazine every day for show and tell anytime it was my turn. So I won Wrestling Fan of the Year in grade 3. So I've been on and off fans. I found AEW a couple of years ago, but similar to you, Rob, and similar to you, Tim, I've gone in and out with WWE. I find sometimes they're just awesome, they're fire, and then just other times I get bored. I do like Ring of Honor, always been a fan. I know Rob is not. I did like TNA for a period of time. I really love Eric Young, local boy. Shouts out to Eric Young. But everything has its peaks and valleys, and same with AEW, but we'll get into it more. So we're all kind of coming from a different area. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was one thing I actually forgot to mention too, like actually in between all the time before Heather and the time of WWE when I stopped, I actually got into a lot of backyard wrestling because of ICP.
Yeah, that's cool.
So a
And
lot
that
of that
shit's
deathmatch shit.
insane.
Yeah.
Like I've only
God.
recently started watching some of that stuff on Dark Side of the Ring.
Ooh.
Yeah,
like-
I was also in backyard wrestling.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you were a wrestler, right, Tim? You
Right.
did wrestling.
Yeah, so I actually trained wrestling.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I was shocked when I heard that. I'm like, holy shit, that's amazing.
Yeah, you're way cooler than us and so much hotter. Isn't Tim looking hot tonight?
He's a
Honestly, I can't, I'm like kind of
Thank you.
nervous looking at him. Thank God he's on the other side of the
I
ocean.
mean,
and
my Scott Crawford
Cool.
is standing at full.
Oh
attention.
fuck, so's mine. Honestly,
Show me.
honestly, that's later, Tim. That's on my OnlyFans. I need to pay that so I can have afford the AEW pay-per-views.
Oh my
They're so
God.
fucking expensive. Anyway,
How
we'll
much
get
is it
into
for
that.
you guys? Just quickly.
It's 50 for us in Canada. $50.
Yeah,
What?
and it's
Yeah, 50.
$50 here in America,
Yeah.
which is like $3,000 in Canada. So
Yeah, it's true. Like
It's
Rob's
only,
right.
it's only $30 for us.
Holy shit, really? Well,
You
Yeah.
Aussie cunts. That's
but what's
why.
the exchange rate? I don't
The-
know
the
what the
exchange rate
Australian
for-
money's
it's like-
worth.
No, the
Our
Aussie
dollar-
dollar is worth less than the Canadian dollar.
Oh.
So it's no offense, Tim.
Right.
It's a lower dollar. I found this out because some Aussies got married, I know, this summer, and I tried to give them Aussie money. So I just maybe
Ah.
they don't have the same number. So they're trying to get maybe viewership up in Australia, right? So you
Maybe.
charge less, right? It's smart.
Probably, yeah. Yeah.
Right after what's his face does his line of blow. I can't remember his name.
Tony Khan.
Tony Khan.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking at them for 30. Slapping for 30. So we have a couple of themes we're going to talk about. We'll start with Tim. And maybe we'll just do WWE first for this. So what do you think, Tim, are the 3 strengths and 3 areas of weaknesses or whatever for WWE as you see it?
Oh, okay. The strengths of WWE. I think first and foremost, the biggest strength that WWE has is the size of the company. The money that it produces, the money it has coming in, gives it a much bigger stage, much bigger aesthetics, pyro, everything like that, compared to everything else. And this kind of coincides with my weaknesses as well. We'll get into that later. But I think how much bigger it is. I mean, if you guys watched the Crown Jewel pay-per-view, that stage was fucking insane. It was huge. And back in the day, like they used to have a different set for pay-per-views. They don't do that anymore, which is annoying. But just that alone, it made the events feel special, you know? AEW, they do to a certain degree have different stages, but not as much as WWE did back in the day.
Now,
So I
you
think
watch
that's-
the pay-per-views. Are they still having one every month, Tim?
Pretty much.
Yeah. See, that's hard to make a different stage every month, right?
but they were. They
were.
were doing that. They were doing that back in the day. There was a monthly pay-per-view. I mean, this month here, November, there's two. They had the Crown Jewel and they got Survivor Series, which is next week. Then December, they've got nothing. And then they're leading up to the Royal Rumble in January. So, yes, they still do have it monthly. Compared to AEW's, what is it, quarterly?
I think
quarterly.
they do 4 year, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is good for my wallet.
Yes.
Yeah.
The next thing that I'm going to bring up, the strength of WWE, and this is a recent strength, and we can all argue about this, but the slow fix. We all know about Vince McMahon leaving, getting done and going, which is something that no one thought was ever going to happen.
That's so
Oh no, I thought he was gonna die. I thought he was gonna have like a heart
I think-
attack on Raw and die. That's what I was pretty
I
sure
think
was
we
gonna occur.
all thought of that. It's crazy. But as much as you guys will probably disagree with you, and as much as other wrestling fans from other podcasters and other people that I interact with on the internet will disagree, there has been a slow fix by Triple H. There are certain little things that are getting tweaked every week, and I'm noticing it, and that's going to make the product so much better in the long run. Guaranteed, I'm saying this right now, you watch in a year's time, the product will be so much better than what it was 2 years ago. I will put money down on that, guaranteed.
Aussie money?
So, yeah.
Nah,
But I want to come to Australia in 2024, so I can use it then.
Yeah, okay. All right. I'll do it. The third strength that I've got are the video packages. I think WWE is second to none with their promos, their video packages. AEW is good, but when you go back to my favorite of all time, WrestleMania 17, where they had Limp Bizkit playing My Way with the video package of that pay-per-view, it was like goosebumps everywhere. So I think that WWE knows how to really edit their shows. So that's the strengths for me. Do you want me to go into weaknesses?
Yeah, and so like those are great strengths, by the way. I agree with all of them, but surprisingly. But yeah, I want to hear about your weaknesses.
Weaknesses. Okay. I think the biggest weakness that WWE has is the amount of content that they've got weekly. 3 hours of Raw is way too much. A lot of the
3
show feels
hours?
like...
It's 3 hours.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
Raw is 3 hours. Then they got SmackDown, which is 2 hours. Then they got NXT, which I'm not too sure.
I think it's an hour.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think it's an hour.
So what's that? That's 6 hours a week. And then if you have a pay-per-view is usually 3 to 4 hours. So that is a lot of stuff that people need to watch in a week. It's mainly the 3 hours of Raw. I find that a lot of the show is filler and a lot of it can be cut.
Yeah, it's a weekly show that's the length of a pay-per-view. I mean,
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Go back to the days of 2 hour max. I think Dynamite's got it correct when they have 2 hours. I think that's a good runtime for a show. Second weakness is part-time superstars being in the main spotlight.
Fucking preach it louder in the back for the people in the back, Tim. Honestly, this shit's gone on for years.
I heard something the other day that blew my mind. Brock Lesnar, he had a match in Crown Jewel with Bobby Lashley earlier this month. That was the first time since 2015 that Brock Lesnar has not had a match for the world title.
Wow.
What's that? 7 years ago. So
Yeah.
every match that Lesnar has had has been for a title, been pushed to the spotlight. Bill Goldberg. If you're going to ask me who my favorite wrestler of all time is, I'm going to say it's Goldberg. I grew up loving the guy, and you can disagree and say how bad he is of a wrestler and performer, whatever. I don't care. I love the man, but he's another guy. Bring him in for special occasions. Don't put him for the title. It just makes the show look stupid because this guy's just coming out of the blue, having done nothing, and just straight into the number one contender.
Not only that, they put the title on him not long ago when he beat the Fiend
Yeah.
That was,
in Saudi Arabia.
yeah.
What the hell are you doing?
and they did it with Kevin Owens as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was twice. Like, both times. Like The Fiend and Kevin Owens are two guys that needed that push, and I hated that booking. I think everyone did.
Well, and I think you said it perfectly. These are part-time guys. These aren't the dudes that are fucking slugging it. And now it's not like it was in the 80s when they traveled like 1 billion days out of the year and were never home. I get it. It's a better schedule now. It's more manageable. But like, I agree. And you got this young talent coming out, and I respect your love for Bill Goldberg. We all have our first loves, but dude should not be carrying the belt. Like, it doesn't make sense for the upcoming wrestlers that are going to take over, right?
Yeah, at this point in his career, Bill Goldberg is an attraction that will bring people out to see him wrestle. And you need to use that to put younger talent over. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to beat Goldberg every time, but put him in the ring with somebody who's young and make that match compelling enough to get them over, even if they don't go over.
Yes.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
100% agree.
Yeah.
I mean, even though I teased you about CM Punk, I mean, look at that CM Punk Darby Allin match when CM Punk first came back around. You know, Darby lost, but he made fucking Darby look so fucking good. I mean, Darby's already been great, but he made that match, made it even look even better.
That's because Punk is a team player.
Well, I will go on record.
For a while.
I will go on record saying this because I tease Rob a lot. CM Punk is a very talented wrestler. He's been around for a very long time. Whether I like his personality at times or not, I do respect what he's done. And I think that no one can take that away from him. And that was an example of where he can bring good out of other wrestlers if he likes them. Right? Yeah.
Yep. My third weakness, and this is something that they are slowly changing, I've noticed, but this is more a complaint I had probably a year ago. Build more stars, for fuck's sakes. They have WWE has the biggest roster to date, even with all the fucking budget cuts that they had, 2 years ago or a year ago. They're bringing all these stars back. Build them. Because honestly, you think about WWE right now, who's really in the spotlight? Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
Drew McIntyre, maybe sometimes. Seth
Bianca
Rollins,
Belair.
sometimes. Yeah. There's no
Austin
real
Theory.
stars.
How is that a thing? I'm sorry. I watched Raw the other night, and I agree with you, Tim. How the fuck is this guy being pushed? Like, he's not horrible. Don't get me wrong, but like, I'm like, really?
Austin Theory is a funny one, and I see where you're coming from. A lot of people say the exact same thing. I hated his selfie gimmick that he was doing. It is creative. It's something new we haven't seen before. I do like that. But this recent Raw, he came out looking like a madman. He has a different kind of look. He has a full of beard, which makes him look better. He had no phone, which was great.
No, he had a pretty fire promo. I'm not sure if you saw the promo. It was a little long in the tooth, but it wasn't bad. If you get a chance, go back and watch it on YouTube. It's a little long, but it was good. He was obviously making a change, right?
I didn't even know he did a promo. I thought
he did a pretty long promo.
Okay.
Yeah, you would probably appreciate it.
All right. But Austin Theory, and I'm going to, this might be controversial, but hear me out. Austin Theory could be the next Randy Orton, John Cena type. Go back in the days of when John Cena first showed up. He looked like shit.
Flavor Flav?
No real. Well, no, before that.
That's what he looked like with his like rap, like when he was like not cool. Remember his not cool rap? Yeah.
But no, before he did the what's the fucking word? The rap gimmick, he had a name,
Yeah.
Dr. Thugonomics. Before he did that shit, he came out just wearing fucking red trunks with no real gimmick at all. And that's kind of how I see Austin Theory right now.
Yeah.
He has no real gimmick. They're yet to find something for him. But when they do, I can see Austin Theory becoming one of the best stars in the company. I could be wrong.
Controversial though, Tim. Like none of us would have predicted when we saw John Cena the first time, except when he had that nod with the Undertaker. Because and no disrespect to the Undertaker, but we all know that everyone kisses the ground the Undertaker walks on, which is fine. He's a great wrestler and he deserves it. But
leader of the locker room,
right? But when you see something like that in a backstage promo, it's telling you, right? Like it's telling you this kid is going to be pushed, right? So
but you wouldn't expect that like to Hogan's level or Austin's level. So
you never know. Right?
Yeah. But that's really the three weaknesses. If we did this show probably 2 years ago, I would be here for hours listing weaknesses for so long because there were so many. But I'm slowly seeing them change, and it's quite honestly, all thanks to Vince being gone.
Yeah.
Thank fuck for that.
Ding dong, the witch is dead. Like,
Oh,
to be
man.
honest with you, right? Like,
Right? Yeah.
He had his time and place.
He did. And, he also, anyway, we won't go into his business practices of how the WWE became the WWE and all the smaller territories he bought out. But anyway, that's for another day. But Rob, what about you? What do you think the strengths and weaknesses of WW are?
All right. So I have for strengths, one right now at the top of the list for me is the excitement surrounding the company because of the leadership change. The wrestling world has been on fire about how excited everyone is that Triple H is taking over for Vince McMahon, and with for reason. I mean, Triple H did a great job with NXT when it was the black and gold brand, and Vince McMahon would constantly call up his stars and then completely bury them and ruin them. Vince was running the company into the ground through terrible booking decisions and constant rematches that made no sense. So I think that's their by far and away right now the company's biggest strength. How long that's going to last, I don't know. But for right now, I think that is their biggest strength. The second one is the fact that they're looked at as sort of the gold standard of professional wrestling. I mean, it's WWE, they are, they're the biggest company around. For a long time, they were like the only company around, the only real player around. And, there's a certain number of people who are, younger people who are coming up with the business, younger talent who are going to want to go there just because that's what they dreamed of doing. No one that's coming up right now dreamed of main eventing All Out or Full Gear.
It's true.
But they all had a dream of main eventing WrestleMania.
Yeah.
So it's going to be easier for them to pull talent. And the third one is just the sheer amount of money and resources that the company has. They're such a big company. And I know that AEW has the backing of Tony Khan, and his family has a lot of money. But how much of that money are they going to be willing to commit to his wrestling company while, WWE just as a company has a ridiculous amount of resources and money?
You're 110% right, Rob. There is no competition when it comes to budget.
Yeah. I mean, I hear people say that all the time about how rich the Khan family is. And it's like, well, they're rich because they don't throw good money after bad. And if that thing starts to go south.
Well, and that's why they're the successful number two. Impact at one time was very good. Abyss, Eric Young, there's some fucking players in Impact, but they never had the budget.
Yeah.
That's why EW is a solid number two to WWE, right? But not WWE's number one because of the money.
Those are the three real big strengths that I see for them at this point. As far as weaknesses go, they're a publicly traded company, and I think that is has sometimes bites them in the ass. I mean, look, it turned out okay, but we saw it with the Vince McMahon thing. They're a publicly traded company, and there's all sorts of investigations and people getting involved in something that probably would have been a big scandal, but I don't know if it would have gone as far as it did. They've got shareholders to please, which means they are going to make budget cuts from time to time and let go really talented, creative people just because they've got to meet the bottom line. As far as a product goes, when I watch it, to me, it doesn't appeal to me because I find it too bright and too kid friendly. There's fucking LED boards in every goddamn corner of the screen, and there's lights upon lights upon lights all over the place. It's just not the professional wrestling that I remember watching. You mentioned the dark and dingy wrestling, Heather. That's what I grew up watching.
Yeah,
and that's what So when I watch this, it's like this whole huge production, and even watching it on television, they've got like those graphics that come out, and
I mean, shit, they even have like television screens alongside the ring apron now. It's fucking weird.
Yeah, and Riddle kicks his flip flops off, and fucking birds come flapping around on my screen and stuff, and I'm like, what the hell am I watching? I mean, it's just too much. And the third thing that drives me nuts about them is Kevin Dunn, the guy who handles their television stuff. Their 1,000 cuts per second of footage drives me insane. It's enough to make me seasick at times, the number of cuts that they put in. It's just constant. Like, just let the camera sit for a second before you cut to something else. It drives me absolute crazy. That's one of the main reasons I can't watch their shows. The content isn't. I don't feel like WWE makes a show that's for me. I feel like it's more of a family and kid friendly kind of show. It's almost like a cartoon show. come to life. So when I watch it, it's just not for me. And that's another thing that's not for me. Just constantly cut. It drives me insane.
That's a good point, Rob. I never thought of the cutting, but after watching Raw, I did sit through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sit down and watch it and try to count the cuts. You'll lose count. There's no way
Yeah.
to keep track. It's just nauseating sometimes.
Valid point.
Yeah, and I was saying, I guess for me, like most of what I find appealing about like WWE, like a lot of like same with the things I dislike about it. These are a lot of personal opinions here, but I do agree with a lot of what Tim and Rob said. You guys have pretty much taken most of my points, but like I do like the for things I like, once again, like they have money, they can bring in pretty much anybody they want. They got the backing from pretty much any fucking production company out there. Like for crying out loud, they are doing promo shoots with like Chucky for the Chucky TV series and stuff like that. Like they are a big brand name. Like people know, like we've known them back as WWF and we knew them as WWE, and you could bring up wrestling to anybody in the world and everybody will know WWE. Now, even if you're not a wrestler, you know WWE. And hell, you even know some of the wrestlers because of their brand recognition from being like just promoted so much. Like, I don't know how many fucking Austin 316 shirts I seen growing up, and people didn't even know who the hell he was, but there's an Austin 316 shirt that person's wearing. It's like, yeah, that's how popular they are. Like, it is a brand that will never die. Like, even like I was kind of wondering how it was going to go after everything that happened with Vince. Like, I was like, is this the end of WWE? But of course not. No, like fucking. But yeah, once again, Triple H taking over, I think is a great thing. And then him putting Shawn Michaels, what was his role in like booking, or
he's creative talent, isn't
creative
he?
talent? That's what it was.
Yeah.
Like putting Shawn Michaels in creative talent, fucking brilliant move from Triple H. Like he's getting obviously he's getting his best friends to.
But Shawn Michaels knows the business, right?
Yeah,
no matter how
Shawn
you
Michaels
feel about
knows it.
Shawn, he knows the business, right?
Oh, 100%. And he was working on NXT forever and like helping these guys and practicing and all this stuff. Like, so like I agree with Tim. I think in I would say a year or two, we will see like a completely different WWE than what we're used to, because Vince McMahon ran that to the ground, and now Triple H is kind of just like polishing up the turd and trying to represent it and rebrand it, and it's got that mass audience appeal, and I know Triple H knows what the hell he's doing, so I know it's going to end up getting better. It's just going to happen, and it's already, as Tim said, because I don't watch. I'm trying to think. The last time I watched WWE, I think I maybe watched like a little bit of Royal Rumble in 2020, just a little bit of it.
Wow.
Just to see what it was like. Like I once again, just one of those I don't really have access to. Like, but. Because unfortunately, I did have access to it till fucking WWE Network got bought out by Peacock. That
fucking Peacock.
I did have that network, and I was going back and watching older shows, just trying to get caught up on a lot of the stuff I missed.
I thought you liked the cock.
Oh,
I like
love
Peacock too. Yeah. Oh, they're talking to me. Okay, yeah.
We already know you love the cock, Heather, and everybody knows I love the fucking cock.
Got it.
But yeah, like you guys have pretty much said everything that like is really good about this, because the money, the backing, Triple H, and they are good at bringing up talent and getting them well known. Unfortunately, going along with that talent, like I don't think it's going to happen nearly as much anymore. But with those budget cuts, Vince McMahon was fucking getting rid of so much talent to the point now where it's like every time I'm gonna reference Wrestling for Dummies here, but every time Tim you talk about the next pay-per-view, it is the same people over and over and over and over again. It's like it's gotten to the point where it's become way too predictable.
Yeah.
Like I can almost as you can see with the predictions off of these, like with a lot of the ones I do, like I've almost gotten like 80% to 90% correct a lot of the time, and I don't even watch the damn show. It's just from just knowing fucking WWE and knowing what they've done, because they've done it for so long, the exact same thing. And they need a shake up there somehow. They need to add more talent and actually bring up new talent and get more people involved. And yeah, then I'm also on agreement with Rob that it's way too overproduced now. It's just way too shiny and pristine, and it's got way too much going on the screen at once. Like I'm trying to watch wrestling and there's like all these moving pictures in the background and shit like that, and it's just like I don't have ADHD, but I sure fucking feel like when I try to watch it, like even just little, like, because I tried watching the Logan Paul versus Roman Reigns match, and I got to see bits and pieces of that, and God, so much is going on, and I'm like just trying to focus on the match, and it was just constantly distracting me. and it's just too much. And then but like everything else, I am definitely the AEW mark here because I'm more the grittier, bloodier type stuff.
Oh, and there's blood in AEW.
Oh yeah.
On
There's lots of
occasion.
blood. It's like they're on their period 24/7 in AEW, honestly.
Like I miss the old days of because they are basically in that PG era with WWE now, where it's just way too family friendly. Like they're afraid to show any
No
any
tits,
blood.
no blood.
Yeah, I'm saying they're
God.
almost what's the word I'm looking for? Almost too cautious with their wrestlers now.
Well, I mean, thank you, Chris Benoit. You fuck.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, thank you. And a lot of other wrestlers that have been serious injured in WWE rings. Like I know Chris Benoit, obviously what he did off screen, but I'm thinking about the list long injury, like life-changing injuries that wrestlers got. It's pretty gruesome when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
Well, okay. I guess I'll go. You guys have done a great job. I agree with the budget, everything else. I think the one thing that WWE has always done well, and they did this during the Monday Night Wars, they don't worry about their competition.
Yes.
There was a time in Monday Night Wars where they slagged WCW a bit, but nowhere near to the shit that WCW would slag, like making fun of Jim Ross and the older superstars. You know, watch Monday Night Wars, everyone. If you haven't seen that documentary, I don't know if you're a wrestling fan, you must be under a rock if you haven't watched that documentary. It's WWE. Well, watch it. It's great. It's WWE produced, so it's obviously slighted on like one side of it, right? But I think WWF does WWE, my God, does a very good job of focusing on itself and focusing on its own product. I think the presentation is above none else. And as much as I found it challenging to get through Raw the other night, I do agree with what Tim says when he says it is getting better. I do think that they are putting more money into young talent. And as another point that Tim has highlighted about women's wrestling in AEW compared to WWE, I do think the talent is better in WWE. Yes. I don't know if it's because they have more money in the performance training centers and they can train them more to their level, because you have that NXT level before you move up. And also, finally, my final point is WWE has conditioned our thinking to SmackDown being the secondary show.
Yeah.
They were the first ones to do that. We forget that WCW, what was the Friday night show that they came out with? It was Thunder. It was Thursday Night Thunder or something like that, right? It was that at the time, right? Thunder Down Under, of course, you remember that. But like, WWE did it first, and they've conditioned us now. So even though Tim and I got into a very spirited debate about Rampage, because Scott and I sat in a live Rampage, all the big stars were in it. Rosa was in it. There was like Darby Allin. There was Adam Page. Like there was all the big stars were in Rampage. But because we've been conditioned by WWE that SmackDown is secondary and Raw is the best, now it's very hard for any shows to, whatever show comes first will always be the best. You could have the most smoking fucking card in the world on Rampage, not going to matter, because people are still going to default to Dynamite, for example. Same with Raw and SmackDown. So I think WWE created that, and they wrote the blueprint. You can't go wrong with that. I agree with all your other points, right? Yeah, they did. They created the path, right? So, but your other weaknesses are right on. They're very PG friendly now, which is fine. I get it. You have to have like something like, would I take my 5-year-old to AEW? Fuck yeah, I would, because Tim and I have the same parenting style. Fuck yeah, I would. But like other people may not. Like my dad was taking me to wrestling events. Fuck, my parents took me to a bar. So clearly you see what my childhood was. But like, I don't know. This is family friendly, which I think is a weakness too. I find it kind of boring. I agree with the length. I agree with too many pay-per-views. Like, how do you come up with content and truly build storylines unless you keep having the same match at every pay-per-view, because you don't have time in between the two, in theory, to build a new storyline. But I do agree, bottom line, Tim, you're right. It is getting better. I still found it a grind the other night, but that doesn't mean I didn't see improvements compared to what it was 2 years ago. So you didn't think I would agree with you, did you?
No, I thought we were going to argue a little more than we have, but...
No, like here's the thing, right? Like wrestling is a subjective thing. Historically, I was never a big fan of Stone Cold Steve Austin. I respect what he did for the business, though. I respect what he did for the business. Let me make that very clear. I respect him and everything he's done. He just wasn't my go-to guy. But that doesn't mean he doesn't deserve his place in wrestling history. He absolutely fucking does. But I don't have to love it. And the one thing I learned from wrestling from a very, very young age, especially being a female fan and having to be told by boys that I didn't belong at the matches and that I shouldn't be there and girls don't deserve to watch wrestling and all the shit I listened to in the 80s and the 90s is that true. It's true. Rob knows. Rob's mad that I even leave the house. When Rob found out that I owned my own home, he was like, a man didn't sign for you first. Right. So, it's subjective, right? But I think the bottom line here is that WWE has got a little comfortable. They have been able to do whatever they want. Impact's not a threat. Ring of Honor wasn't a threat, but now AEW is. So hopefully, it gets a little better, but great points. So we're going to do the same thing. Sorry, go ahead, Scotty.
And I was just going to say, and that's what I love. AEW, is on WWE's radar, and competition breeds innovation. And that is always good for us as the people that are the consumers.
Absolutely. But WWE does a little bit of a classier job than handling it. And we'll get to that in a little bit.
Don't tell Ticketmaster that, by the way.
Look, I know. Okay, Rob, do we need a moment of silence? I know you've had a really rough week about Taylor Swift. Do you need to talk about it? I know.
Bad. I did not get my Taylor Swift tickets.
I was in a very, upsetting car accident this week. My car may be written off, and I sent pictures to Rob, and his response was, "Yeah, but I didn't get Taylor Swift tickets."
Wow.
Which really cheered me up. So thank you, Rob, for
that's what I'm here for.
Constantly reminding me that I'm below a man. I really do appreciate that. But anyway, speaking of a man, let's have Tim go. And Tim, do you want to tell us what you think strengths are and what your weaknesses are for AEW?
Oh, I want to hear this.
Yeah.
Here we go. Okay, it's perfect for what you guys were saying about AEW being somewhat a competition. That's actually my first strength of this. The AEW is the alternative. Coming from, well, take me, for example. I was always WWE until they just became stale, and AEW was there. There was something different, and AEW reinvigorated my love for wrestling because it was something completely different, yet something similar to what we all know and love. So I think AEW being the alternative is probably its biggest strength. We can all go back and forth, and you can love both.
Yep.
Some people are, there's this whole war, it seems. Not so much now, but back when it started, there was this war going on. Well, you can't watch WWE if you are an AEW fan. What are you talking about?
Oh, there still is that war. I'm on these threads and I see it constantly, and it's ridiculous.
I'll be honest, I was part of that war. I was definitely part of that because I was so angry at WWE. And it's only through listening through some of your arguments, Tim. I'll be honest, I really do respect what you have to say. I may tease you. I don't always agree some of your points. But after sitting there and watching WWE, and the reason why I did that was because of you. I trust your opinions, and
thank you.
We have similar parenting styles that we would just get drunk in front of our kids and watch them bloody shit. So I don't have children, by the way. By the way, everyone, this pussy's free of children. So just in case anyone's interested,
not yet.
Not yet. Tim's running his seed across the ocean now. But yeah, you made some valid points about WWE getting better because of AEW as well. So you were right.
Yeah, well, definitely. Right. It's realistically, it's a strength to both of them. WWE needs competition to thrive. Go back to the Monday Night Wars. Yeah, that's the best time. So I don't know. The second strength of AEW, and this is probably something we all have written down, but I'm going to take it. Greater creative freedom.
Yes.
Obviously, WWE is heavily scripted with their promos, and you can tell that AEW is more lenient in letting their performance go out and say what they got to say. Maybe they do it in dot form, or point form, whatever. But these performers are allowed to go out and speak their mind, which at times has backfired them. CM Punk.
Uh-oh.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, Adam Page. But
yeah, that guy's a problem.
Not good on the mic. He sounds like, guys, I don't appreciate you making fun of me. he sounds really not great. Yeah.
While he's wearing his butterfly bedazzled jeans.
Right. He does. Yeah, I agree. Bedazzled. Oh my god. Sorry, Tim.
But like, let me give you an example. MJF.
Yes.
Can you imagine if he was in WWE?
Oh, he would be so fucking watered down.
Oh shit, yeah. He would not be the guy he is at the moment. No way. And this leads me to my third point of strengths in AEW, MJF. And it may seem funny that I mentioned that, but I swear to God, MJF right now is not at the moment, but he will be in months, maybe years to come. He's going to be on the level of Hogan, Stone Cold, The Rock, John Cena, Roman Reigns, all these main event guys that will go down in history. MJF is on that path. He is 100% perfect in everything he does. His wrestling skills are probably the weakest. That's only because he doesn't perform as much as, say, Bryan Danielson. But he's still fucking amazing. His promo skills are second to none. He is the best on the mic in the entire world. I agree. Yeah, I don't think there's anyone that can hold a candle next to him.
Like currently, right? Current roster, currently active.
I would say even just in general.
What about Stone Cold Steve Austin, guys? I'm sorry, I'm not a Stone Cold girl, but
no, Stone Cold was good, but I don't know. MJF is. I think he's quicker. He's quicker with his comebacks. He's quicker with his insults. I think The Rock would be a guy that would rival MJF.
Okay.
Beyond that, maybe going back, Ric Flair, maybe.
Oh yeah, Ric Flair. Even Ric Flair now, he's just old and senile, but he's still fucking funny, right?
And don't shortchange Piper.
I was just going to say Piper.
Valid point, Rob. Yeah.
I was going to say Piper. Honestly, now I think about it, there is another guy who is probably as good as MJF and CM Punk.
CM Punk is good on the mic.
When they opened that episode of Dynamite where it was just 20 minutes of CM Punk and MJF going back and forth, it was perfection.
They could handle each other. Absolutely, right?
Last weekend, I actually rewatched that entire feud because I have like this hour-long YouTube thing of like the entire CM Punk MJF feud, and that was fucking gold.
It was perfect.
I just sat there in awe going, I want this. I wish this stuff didn't happen with CM Punk. I want this to still happen.
Yeah, and the Elite took it away from us.
I'm all about animal cruelty, so I support it. I can't wait to go back to SeaWorld. Rob, you want to come?
As a dog owner, I cannot promote those sorts of
That's not true. I hear you're in the dogfighting club with me. Don't even try that.
It's me, you, and Michael Vick hanging out.
That's right. It's the three of us with our dogs being like
and Kenny Omega.
Yeah, Kenny Omega. Yeah.
All right, on to my weaknesses of AEW.
I think Tim thinks we're going to be a whole lot more upset than me, actually, or me.
This was actually harder. When I was writing down these notes, it was actually harder for me to think about. But if I watch a show, I can pinpoint things that annoy me about AEW. And let me just say this, that WWE, in my opinion, I am more of a fan of AEW. I'm more invested in AEW. And that's why I'm more critical on AEW, because I want them to thrive. I want them to be the perfect company. I mean, that probably is never going to exist. There's never going to be a perfect company. There's always going to be something that bothers people. But my first big weakness, and this is something that really needs to fucking stop, Ring of Honor. Stop with Ring of Honor.
You know how many talents came up from Ring of Honor? Like,
I know, I get that.
What Ring of Honor does for this industry.
Hear me out. Okay. I'm fine with Ring of Honor, but make a separate show for Ring of Honor. Stop forcing Ring of Honor on Dynamite.
But it's the same wrestlers. They go back and forth. I disagree, Tim. I'm sorry.
Well, there's still a lot of Ring of Honor wrestlers that are not on AEW. I see where Tim's coming from.
I don't.
Well, I mean, I agree that they should have their own show because there is like a lot of talent that just does not get the chance to be, for one, to get shown on AEW.
I'm pretty sure they do have their own show still, guys.
That's I mean, they get their pay-per-view.
When?
They had their own show here in Canada at midnight. Yeah. Saturdays.
Not in here.
Oh.
No.
Yeah, like they have their pay-per-views, but like it's
Because I used to
AEW
watch Ring of Honor before.
Yeah, I'll say Ring of Honor
Yeah.
before AEW bought it. Yes.
No, I'll have to check because I thought they still had their own show. Like I thought they were just doing Dynamite to be like showcasing it. Now come watch the show, right?
No,
As far as I know, AEW, as soon as AEW bought
Oh,
them
so
up,
they just merged them completely, and there's no separate.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah,
have to- okay.
Ring of Honor shut down.
When AEW absorbed them, right? That's kind of
No,
what
before
happened.
that.
No,
though.
before that.
Oh,
yeah,
they shut down.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then Tony Khan purchased Ring of Honor, and everyone thought at the time that he was doing it for the video library
Right.
to launch a streaming service. But it turns out he wants to revive Ring of Honor, and that's all fine and good, but get it out of my AEW.
So what you're
Yeah.
saying is have a separate show like NXT kind of
Yes.
thing. Use it as an
Yes.
NXT.
There
Yeah, so
are
I-
too many belts in
Makes sense.
AEW already, and now I've
FTR
got
has all of them.
I've got to mingle all the ROH titles too. It's
Yeah.
just too much. Get
Yeah,
it out. Get it the
exactly.
hell out of here.
like, and I
It's
think
a valid point.
I'll say, because that's why I say I agree with Tim. Like, that does need its own show because there are a lot of talents that don't get a lot of attention for one on AEW, like Briscoe Brothers and shit like that. They, I think, are working on that with this whole Warner merger that they are doing. I think they're trying to get to that point where they can do their own separate Ring of Honor thing.
Tony Khan says that he's been working on it. Doing it with Warner and the Briscoes will be a specific problem, though.
Yeah.
Because-
After what you told me, yeah.
Yeah, someone high up at Warner has said no. He does not want the Briscoes on their product.
Which is a fucking shame because Briscoes are incredible.
Interesting. All right, sorry, Tim.
No,
Good
you're right,
point.
you're
Go
right.
back. Go back.
We already hit at my other weakness, and that's too many championships.
FTR, honestly, he comes out looking like they're rappers from the 90s. Like, are we
they got all the bling.
What's
I
funny
like
is-
FTR, but like, come on.
They don't have a single AEW title though.
No, they
Exactly.
don't.
It's the
It's
AAA
true.
belt. It's the IWGP and it's the Ring of Honor. They don't have a single AEW title.
Exactly.
You make a good
Yeah.
point, Rob.
That
They're
is
just
funny. I
walking out
didn't
with all
realize
these
that.
belts
Yeah.
all the time, and
It's
they don't
just-
even belong there. Yeah.
It's too much.
I didn't even
just-
realize that. That's funny.
Yeah,
And it's not,
I
it's
can't
not,
stand
it's
it.
not, it's not FTR. Like they have championships, but they don't defend them in AEW. Thank fuck for that. But it's the whole, and this is coming back to Ring of Honor. There's
Yeah.
Ring of Honor titles, and even AEW as a company has too many titles.
Mhm.
The what's the one that Orange Cassidy has? I can't
The
remember. its
All
name.
The All
Atlantic.
Atlantic. See
Exactly.
that one I will disagree on because All Atlantic is literally all across. Like it goes to different independent promotions. That one's just like
Yeah, they're
Whoever
sluts, Tim.
owns-
They put out everywhere.
yeah, whoever owns that like doesn't just wrestle at AEW. They go to all these different independent.
Oh, yeah, they
promotions and they defend it. That's why
Oh,
I like
boy.
that.
I'm
Okay,
sure those
all right.
those other independents are going to be real happy we're sending them Orange Cassidy.
Hey, fuck off! Orange Cassidy's amazing, you fucker.
Yeah, he's fine.
Take our joke wrestler and have fun with him.
I fucking love him. I love him so much.
I
Really
don't.
funny.
I don't really like how Orange Cassidy has the title in his backpack and just throws it
I
around.
love that so much.
Really, it's just
I
I kind of
do.
shows disrespect.
It
I
does
agree
show
with
dis-
Tim. See that, Tim? Slowly, we're coming back
Wow.
together.
See, I
I
love
Roscoe.
I
know.
love the see. I think that's why I like it because it is disrespectful, and it's just because it's his character. It just fits perfectly
It
with
does
him.
fit with his character, but I agree
Yeah.
with Tim. I get it, but I don't have to like it. But
Right,
you know what?
right.
It doesn't make it.
That's why I love it.
Doesn't change wrestling, right? Like it really doesn't change. it.
Yeah, that
right?
doesn't
This is
really
why-
bother me. I the belts to me are just props, so who cares?
Oh,
You know what? It's
Well,
like
that's a
grown men
Moxley.
that wear children's belts to events. Like
Yeah.
that's my favorite. When I go to live events and I see grown ass dudes with children's belts on their body.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, Tim. Back to your other weaknesses.
all right. My last weakness is the women's division in AEW.
Mm.
Mhm.
It needs some work. It really does. I mean,
It
okay,
really
take
does.
for example. All right, we've got 3 women's matches on Full Gear tomorrow. And your biggest women's match isn't for a title. I get it. It's Saraya's first match in 5 years, but the build to Tony Storm versus Jamie Hayter has been nothing. There's no.
But they
there's
were
been
best
no
friends
story.
that lived in England together. They shared a flat, Tim. That's all the
And?
story I know. I agree with you.
Yeah,
And,
it's hard to get a
and why do they hate each other now?
Because they don't share a flat anymore. She's best friends with Britt. You're not a woman. You wouldn't get it, Tim.
This sounds like my 8-year-old daughter says, "Oh, I don't like that person anymore. Why? Oh, she doesn't play with me." I'm like, why?
Exactly.
Well, she
the
plays with
plot
that girl.
behind this. Exactly the plot behind
it's
this.
fucking it's written by 8-year-olds. God, tighten
I
up
agree.
the women's division.
Well, I was
Yeah.
gonna
And
say,
you know
is
what?
this-
They're both talented too, and it's a shame.
Yeah.
Like they're both
That's a-
talented, right? So
Mhm.
that's what
That's-
makes it really sad.
And the sad
Yeah.
part is the storyline that is built up between the 3 different women's matches for Full Gear. The one that they've actually there's 2 that they've actually really built up. The Tony,
Don't say it.
unfortunately, the championship
say it.
belt is not that unfortunately a story. But I have to say it, and I can't stand her. Is the Jade and Nyla match? I can't stand. I really don't like either of them. But the
Yeah.
build up there is actually a good build up there. Nyla stealing the belt and going fucking to parties and to fucking signings, carrying the belt, saying she's the champion. Like they actually built that story. Like
Yeah, they did.
they
Yeah.
need to do something like that for the women's championship title. Like
I don't
not
know
just
if
the TNT
I
one.
don't know if any of you follow Nyla on Twitter, but she's
No.
a tremendous follow on Twitter. She's super funny.
Is
I
she?
should follow
I've
her.
heard she's really
She's-
good on
I bet she
Twitter.
has a good personality. Like
Yeah.
she seems like she's a funny person. Right?
Yeah, she's really, really funny on Twitter. And it makes me almost like her when I have to watch her wrestle.
That's legit.
But she's
And that means
just-
a lot because you don't like anything, Rob. So that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Right,
But I'm not looking forward to that match because
No.
Nyla is like I don't know. It's like every program she gets involved in is just a dud for some reason, and
Yeah.
Jade is whatever. I'm
Jade,
done with her.
well, Tim said in the predictions episode, Jade is still too green.
Mhm.
I think she needs
She
more
is, yeah.
time to practice and not just be thrown into a match and just basically thrown to a jobber because that's all it is almost every time besides the pay-per-view events.
Yeah, valid
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Did you want to
And I mean-
add? Sorry, go ahead. Tim.
Sorry, yeah. The thing about the women's division is they have the talent.
Yeah.
There's no excuse. They have the talent. They have all these. I mean, take for example a female wrestler that I'm a big fan of, Abaddon.
Yes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Where's she been?
I don't. They didn't even try
Besides,
her out for
obviously
Halloween.
Dark.
Yeah, so they've been just tossing her in dark, unfortunately.
Yeah, but like
Mm.
she's got a cool gimmick. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe it's cool for us because we love horror, but she's got a different gimmick. She can go in the ring. Why isn't she brought up?
Well, let's be very clear. Wrestling fans and horror nerds are very much the same fucking people.
Mhm.
Exactly.
The dudes I used to go with and watch every pay-per-view with were all fucking horror fans. Like they tend to be
Yeah.
in bed together, right? So, right. Great
Yeah.
points, Tim. Oh, see, this is why you run the solo podcast now, which I'm too good to go on. Just so we're clear, it doesn't matter how many times you ask me, Tim. Anyway,
I'm gonna
Rob.
continue to ask you.
Anyway, Rob, let's hear what you have to say.
For AEW, a lot of the stuff is I'm going to repeat stuff that Tim said. In the strengths category, I have their long-term storytelling. They do a really good job with that when it hits. You know,
Yes.
the Hangman Page, Kenny Omega thing was phenomenally done. They do a great job with that. The Wardlow MJF, even though the payoff was kind of a dud, it was still a great story while it ran. I like that they do that. I like that they're not afraid to do different kinds of matches when they, bring people in. I mean, I couldn't in my head conceive of what the hell an exploding barbed wire death match was when they
Right.
announced it. All I knew was I wanted to see it.
Yeah.
I love that they do stuff like that. I mean, we all know how that one ended and the ending of that pay-per-view.
Well, I mean,
but
still like dog collar match with CM Punk and
Yeah.
MJF.
yeah.
Yeah.
They brought in Nick Cage for a death match with Chris Jericho. I mean, they just do stuff. I keep hoping and praying somebody will bring back the scaffold match, but it
Oh,
hasn't
no.
happened yet.
You know what match
Really?
I want to see? Okay, do you guys remember Rick Martel and Jake the Snake? the
Oh my God,
blindfold
the
match?
blindfold
Which was
match?
such a
Yes.
nightmare. Anytime you hear about but as a little kid,
Oh.
I
Calm
thought
down
it
there,
was
Vince
like
Russo.
the bomb diggy. But now,
Which-
like older, I'd be like, oh,
I
it's not good. That's not safe.
watched that a few years ago, and my God, it's just
Bad,
awful.
right? Bad,
But
right?
just a quick mention. Did you guys see that Jake Roberts is coming back?
I did.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's finally back off. He's off the oxygen. He's feeling better, and he will be back at AEW.
He's had a lot of. Don't get your hopes up too much, Scott.
well, no, he was.
That
Well, he had
gentleman's gone through a lot. So
oh, he has. But I mean, like, I guess he was really, really sick. Not like because of addiction or anything like that. It was just like
Oh,
actually
okay.
sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, DDP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to give you
Aw.
some of that
DDP
DDP
fucking-
yoga. Apparently, you do that, you can live forever.
I did DDP yoga for a while. My back was all fucked, and it does work.
So
Yeah.
I thought you were all talking about Diamond Dallas Page for a second there, and then I realized that you were not talking about Diamond Dallas Page. I'm like, oh no, they're talking about drugs. Okay.
No,
We
I was
are
talking about
DDP.
Yeah, Diamond Dallas Page like
Oh, I thought you.
saved a lot
Okay.
of wrestlers.
Yeah, he has,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, got it. I thought you were talking about it as a drug all of a sudden. I'm like, well, I thought
No.
you guys were talking about Diamond Dallas Page.
I mean, if
but
there is
okay.
a drug called DDP yoga, I'll try it. But
Anyway, Rob, we cut you off. Continue.
that's fine. And then the last strength is really just a personal thing for me, and sort of goes in the face of what I said about WWE, which is that when I watch it, it looks like a wrestling show to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
So those were the strengths that I came up with. As far as the weaknesses go, I mean, one of their biggest weaknesses is Rampage. Does anyone care about that show?
I
I
try
don't
to
even
watch
watch
it
it.
when I can.
I don't even
try
watch
to.
it most of the time. It's garbage every single week.
What would you want to see to make it better? What do you think is garbage?
Just
about
the
it?
matches are just garbage matches.
The
I
booking
just
is
don't-
not good.
Yeah, I just don't care about them. I mean,
Okay.
the last time I cared about it was when CM Punk came back. You know,
Fair enough. Fair enough. He's your boy.
beyond that, they don't do anything interesting really on that show. So it just sort of languishes, and they've got so much talent that doesn't get television time,
Yes.
or that they
Mhm.
seem like they don't use, and they've got this hour where they just put garbage in it. I don't
Yep.
understand. Tim mentioned the women's division. We talked about that. They've got to fix that. I mean, you're going on 3 year, or your 3 year, the 3 year mark with this company, and your women's division is still a mess. Something has to give there. They've got to start giving these women more time. I mean, they get one segment a week on Dynamite. It's just not enough to create builds for any sort of pay-per-view matches or to do anything interesting. You've got one segment, and 90% of the time it's Britt Baker, and
Yeah.
I like Britt. She's fine, but she's over. Put somebody else in that slot. Let somebody
Yes.
else get over.
Good constructive feedback. Yeah.
And then the last thing that I have is that the booking, when they do the long-term booking and it works, it's great. But Tony Khan seems to be scatterbrained with it. So he'll start building a program and then it just ends and goes nowhere and nothing happens. Like they were building this rift between the Elite and what used to be the Undisputed Era in NXT with Adam Cole and Bobby Fish and the other Kyle O'Reilly. Yeah. And now, and they'd been, sort of feeding that and building towards that for the longest time. And it's not going to happen now. It's like, it's just off. I mean, they don't even have Bobby Fish under contract anymore.
Right.
Yep.
So that's the biggest example I can think of. But I remember at one point when Cody was still with the company, they'd started leading down the road of a program between him and Penta. And then it just went away and it never became anything. They do that all the time.
There's a
Kinda
lot
like-
of dead feuds. You're right. There's a
Yeah.
lot of things that start and then they just nope.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Britt Baker Jamie Hayter thing that happened
Yeah.
during All Out and just kind of just faded away. And
Yeah.
it was
Well,
like, oh,
for
work them
now.
together. Yeah,
For now.
I'm hoping that gets
I think
I-
that's coming back up.
Yeah, I'm
I
hoping it does.
I do expect them to return to that one, but I feel like it should have started already. I mean, what happened at All Out between the two of them was the perfect place to jumpstart that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So why they backed off, I don't know.
And well, I mean, and they even leaned into it for a little bit after
Mhm.
that, like in a couple Dynamite episodes. And
Yeah.
then it was just like, oh, it's a forgotten.
And
So,
on
yeah.
a side note, same with Chris Jericho and Daniel Garcia. I personally
Yeah.
did not like that curve. I thought that personally, I would have loved to
Mhm.
see him go with, Willem Regal and the
Yeah.
And where's
Angle or
Garcia
whatever.
been the past
Yeah,
few
like
weeks?
ever since then, yeah.
maybe he's not well. Maybe something's happened, right? And we don't
Yeah.
know.
And you also
Right.
end up with a lot of feuds on the flip side that seem to go on forever. Like
Yeah.
this
Yes.
JAS Blackpool Combat Club thing. It's like, oh my God, can we just move on?
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's NWO flavored. Like it drags out, right?
Yeah,
like they're
for the
dragging it
longest
out,
time.
right?
I mean,
yeah.
there's only so many combinations of matches I can care about between these two factions. Let's move on to something else.
Good
Right.
points. Good points, Rob. All right, Scotty, anything you want to add that hasn't already been said?
Yeah. One thing for sure I want to add is AEW's homegrown talent. Like
Yes.
they've brought, Britt Baker, who Heather probably remembers.
Was a fucking dentist, like legit.
Oh, well, and she still
And
is.
wrestled on the weekends. Like that's
Yeah,
what her
did-
part-time gig was. So
Did you
And she
guys know
still
she's
is-
a real dentist?
Yeah,
yeah,
I'll say,
she is. Yeah, she has a
she's-
practice. She had to leave
Yeah,
to
that
Well,
was-
do
no,
this
she's
full
like
time.
she still does dentistry.
But
She's
I
like-
thought she left it.
Nope, she still does
Oh,
it
okay.
because she loves that job. And the reason why she loves AEW is because they are not so strict with their scheduling like WWE is. So it still gives her time to do that career and pursue that.
Imagine loving being a dentist.
Right? Well, I mean, hey, some people have their passions. But no, I love the homegrown talent that AEW has created. We got Britt Baker, who when she first came out, I couldn't stand her. Her mic work was terrible.
Oh, horrible.
Her wrestling was not that great. And over the years, she has gotten fucking
And
that
her promo where she addressed it on Wednesday night.
Oh my God, that promo on Wednesday was fucking mwah. That was amazing.
As a woman, there is very few women that can handle themselves on a mic. And I think it's because they're not given the time. She did a fucking phenomenal job.
Yeah,
and also
100%.
because the natural order of things is they shouldn't talk. So
Jesus
it's
Christ.
so nice that Rob allowed me to speak on my podcast today. Thank you, Rob.
But I mean, like Tim said earlier, you know, as homegrown talent, MJF. Obviously, like with Ring of Honor, we have like the Young Bucks, Hangman Adam Page. We have New Japan Wrestling, Kenny Omega. But like, I mean, you know, these people were the ones that helped Tony Khan create this. But we got a lot of new talent that just fucking shines in AEW.
Mhm.
Like, look at Penta and Ray Fenix and all that stuff. Like, I mean, I'm sure they were in Lucha Wrestling and all that. Like, I'm not sure of their history, and Pac, like that trio, fucking amazing. And their work is absolutely incredible. Another thing, like Rob had brought up earlier, was this feels like old school wrestling, like the grittier look to it, where WWE is very pristine. One thing I do love about this is how they kind of blend a little of the New Japan wrestling with Ring of Honor, with Impact, with fucking their own style, and even a little bit of WWE. They like just kind of blend all these different wrestling things together to create these different events. So we got, you know, like the dog collar matches, we got the barbed wire explosive matches from fucking NJPW.
Or the one we saw, the
blood and guts.
Yeah, the blood and guts.
That another just great idea. And like, so they have like, they're like, I love that they've combined a lot of this stuff. Like they still add like a lot of the hardcore wrestling, like the backyard wrestling, just, you know, a little safer. But that's also kind of one other thing I'll talk about later. But and the third highlight is their roster. They have such an amazing roster. However, that is also their downside. They have such an amazing roster, but they don't give them enough time to use them. Like, we have a lot of good talent that just does not see the light, the light. Like,
well, or they just get on Dark.
Yeah, or they get put on Dark, or they're just not sure how to handle them. I mean, Danhausen, for example. I mean, yes, he was healing from a really fucked up, shattered leg from when, like, previously before they picked him up, and the man sells merch. The man he's a great fucking face for AEW, and he's a great fucking
Rob's
wrestler.
wearing his shirt right now.
Yes, everyone loves Danhausen. Like, he is great, but it does seem like AEW does not know how to handle him and where to place him yet. Like, they're always kind of just throwing him as a tag team partner in something, and they're trying to figure it out. And I think that is also why he may be going heel, to kind of try something different, to go on his own.
Yeah.
Or to join up with Malachi Black and his group. Like, because I know Malachi Black is planning on coming back very soon. Like, that's been talked about. But yeah, that's like their downside, is they have a great roster and so many people, just not enough time to showcase them. And the booking is kind of iffy on that. Like, a lot of it gets pushed to Dark, and not many people watch Dark, unfortunately. Like, I'll watch it here and there just because there'll be certain wrestlers that I'm interested in, but for the most part, it's just kind of a house show.
Well, we spent, when we went to the live event Dark, trying to get you a t-shirt and trying to get me a drink.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's how we spent Dark.
Yeah, I'll say, because there was really of no one of interest to us, like, as far as we knew.
Well, that, and I wanted to drink.
Yeah,
the merch situation at AEW live events is a nightmare, by the way.
Yeah, it is. It's not well organized.
They need to figure that out, because I mean, you can miss so much of the show just waiting in this long ass line, and they don't have very much when you get up there. Really, their selection is terrible. They need to work that out.
I saw more selection at Toronto's Blue Jays game, and let me assure you, no one wants to buy Blue Jay merch. So, like it needs to be improved. I think you gentlemen, it's good because men speak for me. That's like Bob speaks for me. So I really appreciate. I'm sorry. I thought you were done, Scott. My apologies.
That was only one of my
shit.
1 points of the bad side.
All right, run it. Like, sum it up, Scott.
Fine. Rush me. Fine.
It's hard to have time on television for all your talent when you've got to make room for the ROH Pure Championship.
Well, that's why
you're being rushed because we don't have time for you on television. So.
Well, I'll say, and I think that's why they're eventually going to get their own like show, because they are just kind of like focusing a lot on that and not giving a lot of their homegrown talent, like Abaddon, attention. But the second point, obviously, like you guys said, the women's division, they have a lot of strong people in it now. They brought Saraya in, they brought Toni Storm in. Britt Baker is an amazing homegrown. Same with Jamie Hayter, amazing homegrown. It's just they need to work on a good story and work on something like hell.
Well, don't forget about Thunder Rosa.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say,
I know she's away
Rosa.
right now, but Thunder Rosa.
Thunder Rosa, and then even as much as I don't like her right now, Jade Cargill, I could see her doing really good. She just needs more practice and to not have so much focus on her. Take her off the roster for a bit, let her practice, come back eventually, because I could see her being really good. It's just they're just constantly throwing jobbers at her all the time, and it's like, oh, here's a Jade Cargill match. Oh, done in 30 seconds. Okay, moving on. Yeah, it's boring.
It's worked in the past. It did work for people like Goldberg, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't work for women.
No, like
It doesn't.
the women, especially in AEW, just need a little more time.
Well, women wrestling has always been second nature. Like, let's just call a fucking spade a spade, right? Like, and I think it's what works for men will not work for women because people don't have the attention span for women wrestling like they do for men.
Which I was also going to say this too. I am surprised, because everybody always makes like fun of the Young Bucks with their flippy flops all over the place. I'm shocked we don't have women doing that.
Well, Trish Stratus did that for
like,
years.
I'll say it's been
Right?
a long time since I've seen that.
Yeah, but we don't see the Trish Stratus wrestling that we used to see.
No,
she was a different breed because she got anyway. We're not going into the story of Trish Stratus.
And well, actually, here's one more highlight I wanted to give real fast. But AEW is great at keeping kayfabe alive.
Yes.
Even during the internet era, you never know what's fucking real or fake.
Good point.
But as a negative, as I was making fun of WWE for being too cautious, AEW seems to be almost a little too careless. I think there needs to be that fine balance because there's a lot of their talent that's been hurt, like especially in this last year. And I'm not sure if that's just talent because of the talent themselves or because of just like bad like matchups and booking or what, but it's something.
I think there's a training issue.
Yeah, I think there's got to be something there.
Yeah, and some of it too is some of the talent that they have. I mean, a guy like Ray Phoenix just throws his body around like
Darby Allin.
He gets hurt a lot, but it's mostly just because he does crazy shit.
Same with Darby Allin.
Yeah, same with Darby Allin.
There's a difference between botching and doing crazy shit. And I think the botches are where we start to see like what happened to Adam Page was done by a very experienced wrestler. Like John Moxley is an extreme, like dude's been around, like he knows what he's fucking doing. So if those two can be in a situation where Hangman is not getting up, it's scary. It's a serious thing. So it's a good point that you're making, Scott. They sometimes are too careless.
What I think they should be doing is, and I give AEW credit for this, every single time they go to the ring, they want to one up themselves. But I think they should, for Dynamite and Rampage, lessen it down a bit, save those incredible matches for the pay-per-views.
Yes.
Yeah, I could see that.
Good point, Tim.
At least with the Adam Page situation, they handled that well. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember the Matt Hardy thing or not, but good Lord, that match should have never continued.
Yeah. They're learning. They're still a young company, right? If like in all fairness, they're still a young company, right? So,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Right. Scott, sorry, I cut you off before.
No, that was all I had to say. I was last.
Well, as I said, men speak for me, and I just feel like just like female wrestling, I come last, which is fine because you guys say everything that I agree with. The only thing I'm going to add is I feel like I'm watching history repeat themselves. WCW went from being a drab, boring production to being exactly what AEW is now. They gave their wrestlers more freedom with their promos, as I'm sure you all remember, and that can be a blessing and a curse. And I think they have to be very careful the line they walk there. The other thing I think AEW needs to change, because I agree with all the strength, there's no point me adding to that. They need to stop worrying about what WWE's doing.
Yes.
Stop calling them out in the ring. They need to stop worrying about that. And they need to just continue to be the best promotion they can be. Because Tim, you made a point about attendance. Now, when they came here to Toronto, which it was available in Buffalo, which is 45 minutes from me, and I went to see it with Scott in Detroit. So it's not like I can't cross the border and go see it. It just cost me, as Rob has said, $3,000 to go to an AEW event. But those events sold out like that, and they will sell out like that again when they come to Canada. There's multiple WWE events that aren't moving. No one's buying fucking tickets that are coming up here. So AEW has it. They need to stop worrying about what WWE's doing and just focus on them being the best they can be with all the suggestions you guys gave. And that's the only other thing I have to add, because I agree with everything else that was said. It's valid points. Tim's
Yeah.
like, I thought Heather was going to tell me I was wrong. Look at his face. But no, it's true. Like, you guys made some really valid points, but AEW has a chance right now to be what Impact could have been 5 years ago, but couldn't. They didn't have the money. They didn't have the budget.
Yeah.
And now AEW has the fucking chance. Don't fuck it up like WCW did. Don't fuck it up like Eric Bischoff did. Here's your chance to like not fuck up Tony Khan. So let's see what happens. So our next topic is Mount Rushmore of wrestlers. So this is where we're going to pick 4. This was Tim's idea, so it's fitting that he should go first.
Oh, I'm excited that you guys know what Mount Rushmore is.
I'm trying to think of something
Very
clever
good.
to say back, but I've had half a bottle of red wine. So
Well, I mean, honestly,
slacking.
if
I
there
have
was
finished my
some
bottle.
landmark in Canada, I wouldn't know what the hell it was.
I don't even think you know which direction Canada is, Rob. Like, I'm pretty sure you think I live next door to you.
It's that way.
I know. Oh my god. Like, Rob boils my blood every day.
It's where the cold is.
Like, and I don't know why that is. That pushes me over the edge. Scott knows it because he's laughing. He knows that it makes me like psycho. Anyway, why don't we go to Tim before I fucking kill Rob, and we find out what Tim thinks about who his 4 are.
All right. I'm gonna be quick. I've actually made 2 lists. One
Like a
list which
personal
I-
one and then like an objective one.
Yeah, one that I
Cool.
think is probably correct, and then my personal one.
Okay,
So
cool.
the one that I think is probably correct, and 2 of these guys I don't actually, I'm not really a big fan of, but the one that I think is correct, I'll start with Bruno Sammartino.
Oh, maybe.
Then next we've got Hulk Hogan.
Of course.
After that, I've got a tie. I couldn't pick between these 2, but it's Stone Cold and The Rock.
Fair number.
And,
Fair.
And last, I've got John Cena.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
You got to respect, right?
All 5 of these guys, for obvious reasons, have done incredible things in wrestling and have made wrestling more viewable for people. I mean, most people, maybe not Bruno Sammartino, but most people know who Hogan, Stone Cold, The Rock, and John Cena are. But Bruno Sammartino, I mean, how many days was he as champion? So
Wasn't it like 300 and something or 500? What was it?
it
Rob,
was like
you're old. Do you know?
wasn't it like 1,000 or something like that?
Yeah, not without Googling it, I don't know. But it was a long run.
Yeah.
It was a crazy amount. Yeah.
I'm looking it up now.
So, okay, while Scott looks it up, my personal list, I've got Chris Jericho. The man has been there, done it all. I still think he's got a lot to give, and he's just fucking killing it. Next man I got is The Undertaker. I mean,
respect.
for obvious reasons. He's just one of the best in the ring, and his longevity. I kind of put these 4 guys in different categories. Like they had to excel in all these 4 categories, and that's mic skills, ability, their character, and longevity. And so far, Jericho and Undertaker have surpassed that. Next man I've got is Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Say what you will about Hulk Hogan, the man is up there with the best in wrestling. And last, my 4 is Stone Cold Steve Austin for the exact same reasons. So Jericho,
Nice.
Undertaker, Hogan, and Austin are mine.
Awesome.
And I was like, and I did look it up, 2,803 days.
Wow.
That's Bruno Sammartino's reign.
That's an AEW run for FDR is how long they're going to run all those fucking bouts for. Anyway,
That's
Rob, what's yours?
All right. I didn't do all the fancy stuff that Tim did. I just came up with my 4. The Bushwhackers.
Oh,
Nice.
Honky
you know, I
Tonk
saw
Man.
them
No,
when
I'm-
I was like 8 years old, and
I'm
they
kidding.
still
They're
stay
not
with
on
me.
my Mount
Oh,
Rushmore.
As
Those
soon as you
idiots.
said Bushwhackers, I knew you were fucking with us.
the cutest thing
Fucker.
ever.
I love
Aw.
Bushwhackers.
Yeah, no,
Um,
Scott and I are half drunk, so we're like, great pick.
So number 1 on mine is Randy Savage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His promos were incredible. His in-ring skills they were off the charts. And he was just, I've said this before, the guy's been dead 10 plus years and he's still over, you know?
Yeah.
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 He was just incredible. He's my favorite of all time. I loved watching him in the ring. Number 2 is, everybody has an impression, right?
Yeah.
Number 2 is Ric Flair. Ric Flair to me is the ultimate heel in professional wrestling. Back in the day, his promos and everything were just incredible. I actually debated about whether putting him on here because his longevity has been a little too long, and I feel like maybe he's
Like it's getting
tarnishing-
awkward, right?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he's maybe tarnishing that legacy a little bit.
It's like having a boner for way too long.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you
Yeah.
got to see a doctor and have a drain. But
Or come bang me. Either one.
but he's I think he belongs on there. Number 3, I put Vince McMahon. Vince
Respect.
McMahon
Wow.
Yeah.
changed
Respect.
the entire business of
Yeah.
professional wrestling. He made it into something that he made WWF, WWE into something that the sport had never seen before. And when he finally did decide to come on camera as a character, he's possibly the greatest heel character of all time.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah. Good point.
So, personal feelings about the man aside, again, maybe his longevity ruined that legacy a little bit, but what he did was absolutely amazing. And the number 4 is a bit of a cheat, maybe because, well, he was a wrestler, but I never saw him wrestle. When I watched professional wrestling, even as a kid, one of the things that I liked the most were the out of ring personalities, your managers, your announcers, your commentators, all that sort of stuff. And the greatest ever was Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Oh,
Oh,
man.
shit,
He was
yeah.
fucking epic. Yeah.
So
was
he
great.
gets my 4th slot. There will never be a team on commentary that comes close to being as good as Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon back in the old days. Those guys were fantastic.
Dude,
His work as a manager, his promo work, everything was just perfect about him. Absolutely loved the Brain back in the day.
amazing.
Wow.
Like,
He was
Great.
even
He
great
shocked
when he
me.
would do interviews on documentaries because he was fucking real.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't hold back what he thought.
Yeah.
I remember when he talked about the Ultimate Warrior and his first
Oh.
impressions of that guy. And it's funny to watch that.
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
show the destruction of the Ultimate Warrior anymore because they're all kissed and made up at WWE. But like Bobby Brain's fucking dialogue on that is hilarious.
And
So,
Tim, I do have to ask, were you shocked as I am that CM Punk is not on that list?
I honestly thought he was going to say CM Punk times 4.
I didn't think he
No.
was going to, but that's because
No.
Rob and I are really good friends.
No, I do love Punk. He is my favorite, well, active, I guess in quotes at the moment, wrestler. But he's not quite there yet.
Yeah.
Mm.
Fair.
That is fair.
All right,
Nice.
Scotty.
That's a good list.
It is. I like how you put Vince McMahon on there. As much I agree with you, Rob. That's a really valid point you made about him. He did
Yeah.
change the face of wrestling.
Yeah.
It's what
without
we know
him,
today.
Without
Right.
him, we're all going to see these shows in smoky armories somewhere.
Yeah.
In bingo halls where they're
Yeah.
having bingo over on the other side,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, no
So-
shit. That is,
right.
yeah, you got to give the man props.
Right.
Even
All
no
right,
matter how
Scotty
bad he
too.
is.
Scotty too hottie.
All right, so I kind of went with just like, personal favorites here. I didn't do the whole thing Tim did because I wasn't thinking that far back. But for me, number 1, one of the greatest heels ever, Rowdy fucking Piper. God
Yeah.
bless that man. One of my favorites as a child and fucking loved that man. And like to the day that he died, he was just one of my all-time favorite people and just wrestlers in general. He was the one that truly showed what being a heel was like in my eyes.
The best person to never win the title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was great. And hell comes to Frogtown and they live. I mean, come on.
Yes.
He wasn't a
He
bad
was.
actor, to be honest
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
He was pretty good.
No, he's
right?
good. Yeah.
For a wrestler, like he wasn't bad.
And then another one from the 80s that went on till about early 2000s. I'm just a sexy boy. Sexy boy.
Yeah.
Good old Shawn Michaels.
Did you ever see the video where he deceives Marty Jannetty at the Brutus Beefcake?
Yes.
little- That's classic.
Yeah,
I remember watching
barbershop.
that live, like not live, but
Really?
like on TV. And I was like, oh my God. Like I was devastated as a child that they would break up, right? Yeah. It was a big
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah, like he was one of my Shawn Michaels was, and when he was in the tag team with the Rock Stars, I was a huge fan and got to see them at a house show. Like that was the only
Cool.
show I ever went to when I was a little kid, and I was so fucking excited to see Shawn Michaels and to like see him come back as just like HBK and just do everything he did, and then the fucking what we thought was like the retirement match for fucking what's his name? I'm drawing a blank at the moment. All of a sudden,
They all retire, but they never really retire
Right.
unless they're dead. That's the only time they're actually
oh
retired.
god,
I don't Undertaker?
no, woo! With
Oh, Ric
Ric- oh,
Flair?
Ric
Ric Flair,
yeah.
thank you. But yeah, that match and just like you see him just saying "I'm sorry" before he fucking knocks him out or whatever. Like,
I'm sorry, I love you. Oh,
Yeah.
tears.
God, that was heartbreaking. But like, just his career throughout,
He
just, like,
screwed
the
Brett,
history.
so
Yeah, he fucked over Brett, unfortunately. Like, but like, I have to admit, like, even watching like this deep dive interview with him, like, and how like sorry he was to do that to him, and like, how they made up at the end, like, it just beautiful. And to see where he is now, it's just fucking Shawn Michaels, one of my favorites.
And he has a great redemption story, right? Because
He really
was
does.
just a complete asshat when he was
He
younger.
was.
And he has done his best from what I understand to make amends. So
Yeah.
good for him.
and
Yeah,
help
like-
young talent, right? Like help
Yeah.
young people coming into the industry. That's huge.
Yeah, 100%. Like he went from being like this person that you just hated because he was so fucking arrogant to just like realizing the error of his ways and just kind of coming back around and just doing what he can to help.
And
it
just as a Canadian, I'm not that mad about the Montreal screw job. Just so we're clear, I probably moved past it more than Bret Hart has. It really wasn't that big of a deal. Just so we're
fair
clear.
enough.
But how do you feel about Bill Goldberg?
Oh, I'm really mad at him. I'm so mad. But yeah.
And like just because I'm going through the eras obviously that I grew up with, because like I obviously missed a lot of the beginning to middle of the Attitude Era, so I'm going to focus on the end of the Attitude Era here. And Rob Van Dam, fucking huge fan of RVD.
Wow.
I love that man, like huge fucking fan. Like I just watched everything he did. Like, was that?
Sorry, that was me.
Oh, threw me off. I was
Tim's
like,
getting
wait, what is
voice messages. That's why he's popular.
that? And then I'm gonna give one that's a newer one, and that is the Briscoe brothers.
Wow.
Wow.
I fucking love their in-ring skills and their dirty South style promo jabs when they are like, if none of you have seen it, watch their fucking 3-match feud with FTR. Holy fucking hell, that is some of the most amazing work I have ever seen in ring. And then their promos talking shit to FTR is just incredible. And like that's where I say, like, I was falling in love with Ring of Honor. I fell in love with New Japan like before AEW came around. Like, and I wish I had more easy access to it back then, because I would have been gobbling that shit up. But no, Briscoe brothers as my number 4, because fuck, they are so good, and I want to see more of them.
Hey, better late than never, Scotty. My 4 is pretty simple. I'll be honest. I float a little bit between Macho Man. I agree with you, Rob. I think Macho Man was iconic. His personality, his control in the ring, how he scheduled all his matches. He made his matches good no matter who you were. He made you look good. And I think there's a lot of there's a lot that goes down in wrestling history because of him. So it was really hard for me to come up with 4, so I may just say 5. Macho Man, Hulk Hogan, and it's not going to be Bret Hart, because as much as I love Bret Hart as a Canadian classic, and if I was doing a Canadian one, it'd be very different. He's kind of a bitch, and like Tim's highlighted it for me. Like Tim was like, "Oh, he complains about Goldberg." I'm like, "Oh, Tim, he also complained about the screw job too." Like he's just, And I was like, "Oh my god, this is ridiculous. This man always brings it up." So he got removed. The Rock, Stone Cold, and John Cena. We would not have wrestling as it is today if it wasn't for those last 3. Macho Man
true.
and Hulk Hogan carried the 80s. Incredible talent. But when we see what we have today, and it's interesting because I was never huge fans of the 3 of them, but I respected them. And a little note about John Cena. I went to arenas where I watched people throw shit at him. I watched people grown men scream at him. Well, I watched a little kid in a chair with all his stuff, like his t-shirts, everything else decked on. And I turned to dudes and I'd be like, "Can you grow the fuck up? There's a child here." Like, seriously. Like, that kid came to see John Cena. He doesn't need to hear you screaming as a fucking 40-year-old man what a loser he is. Like, honestly, it's wrestling. And I think what John Cena has done for Make-A-Wish and children is out of this world. Like, whether he's the best wrestler in the world, you know what? He's not. But he's really given back and constantly worked, even as a champion. He wasn't a part-time champion. He never was. And I give him credit for that. So I think he deserves to be up there too.
100%. Also, just a quick shout out to Diamond Dallas Page, just for what he has done for other
DDP.
wrestlers.
Oh, fuck. And like other shit he did too, man. He had some great fucking matches.
Oh, he was an
He was a
amazing
fun
talent,
dude.
but then like just the fact that even after his career was over, he is like bringing in these wrestlers that are struggling from drugs and addiction and just helping them. And it's just like, that's just an amazing story.
It's a dark industry too, right? We should, if you guys are interested in doing follow-up episodes to this at some point, we should talk about addiction. We should talk about Chris Benoit.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want to talk about Chris Benoit. I think this group could, and how he should be remembered. Right? It's a really delicate subject. Rob will try to do his best to not make jokes throughout it.
No, I won't. I will make jokes. I just know that now. If you don't want jokes, schedule it without me. I'm surprised that we all went through a Mount Rushmore and no one had Bret Hart on theirs.
Yeah.
I find that interesting.
Yeah, I would have if a Canadian one, I would have put him because he's a Canadian icon. But as a Canadian, so is Chris Jericho. Like Chris Jericho has probably done more for Canada. Never changes that he's from Winnipeg, Manitoba, and most people don't want to admit that they're from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Like, let's be real talk here, right? Like, it's different saying you're from Toronto, Ontario. But I do respect Bret Hart, but his whining, like that Tim has showed me, has really like brought him down in my books. As much as I love him, much respect for everything he did, the whining is a little annoying.
Yeah. The other one that I really thought about putting on my list and didn't, but was so close, was the Road Warriors. Those guys were so incredible.
Amazing. Great tag team. Made tag teams what they are today, really. Them and the Rockers.
They were like the first ones I remember having like a true style gimmick.
What a rush.
Yeah.
Awesome times, right?
Yeah.
Well,
they were over wherever they went. I mean, that's why they called it the Road Warrior Pop. I mean, they were huge.
They were huge. It's a shame that addiction too there, I think.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's the life of wrestlers, man, right? It's really hard. So we'll keep this, however you want to say, things that you want to see moving forward. I guess, Tim, what do you want to see in wrestling moving forward?
Oh, okay. First and foremost, I want stronger feuds. Stronger feuds is what made me a wrestling fan, and I think what made all of us a wrestling fan. Every now and then we see really good feuds. I mean, MJF versus Punk, we brought that up, and that was amazing. But I want more of that. Like, I want more like Sting versus the NWO, Hogan versus Savage, Stone Cold versus Rock. I want more good feuds. And we really haven't seen many. Like, we've seen decent feuds, but nothing amazing besides MJF versus Punk. So that's the first thing I want to see going forward. The next thing I want to see going forward is something we've brought up a couple of times during this podcast, which is lesser injuries. And I know injuries happen. It sucks that they happen, but I think you can prevent them easily by stop going insane. Stop trying to one-up each other all the time. As I said before, leave it for the pay-per-views. You don't have to do it every single week. People are still going to enjoy matches on Dynamite, on Raw, on SmackDown, on Rampage, whatever. If they're still there, they're still going to enjoy them if they're not as crazy. And I think most people can understand why. The next point I have, my final point, and this is just, I couldn't think of anything else. This is something stupid for me, but I want more MJF. The guy's fucking gold.
I mean, I can't argue with that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the guy currently is my favorite wrestler at the moment. I think probably most people's favorite wrestler at the moment, but the guy is just fucking gold. He's perfect to me. And when he wins tomorrow, I'm going to be fucking cheering my ass off.
I'm going to be screaming like a little fucking girl.
He will win. He will.
It's funny. The thing about AEW is they, unlike WWE, they're not predictable.
Yeah.
So what's the chances of something happening and him not winning?
But he's in home territory. AEW always lets people in home territory win. They're not like Drew McIntyre goes to fucking England or wherever they were in the Commonwealth where he should have won. And they were like, oh no, just kidding.
Yeah, because I'll say like,
I'm kind of glad he didn't.
Fair. I understand that, but it makes sense for the hometown crowd.
Yeah,
it does. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, because Tim and I were having this conversation last night, and we're just like, yep, that's one thing we love about AEW is like, you think you know where they're going. 75 to 80% of the time, you're right. But
Tony Khan has no idea. He's done a lot of blow. He doesn't.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's just kind of like doing his own thing, like half the time. Hell, I think he just goes, you wrestlers figure out who you want to win. I'm going to just sit back because I just don't have control over you anymore.
Oh, I disagree. I think he is taking control back, and that has a lot to do with Rob's boy there. But yeah. Yeah.
All right, those are my 3 points.
That's it.
Rob.
That's good, Rob.
So I guess what I would like to see going forward is, first of all, hashtag justice for Punk.
And what would that look like, Rob? I'm just
Well,
curious.
he's got to be able to. He needs to come back and be placed back in that locker room leader role that he deserves.
Okay. And why does he deserve it, Rob?
Because he's a leader. He's a born leader, and
He's a born leader.
Yeah, he's respectful of everybody at all times.
He's respectful.
I really
like you're
believe-
respectful of me?
Yeah.
Okay.
I really believe that we need justice for Punk, and then
You mispronounced cancer. Sorry.
and then I agree 100% with Tim. MJF. I had that written down too.
Yes.
I mean, he's that is the future of AEW right there. And I don't know exactly what that looks like. But he is, I think, right now, without a doubt, poised to be the future of this company. There was a lot of talk about, the four pillars of AEW when the company started. And I think for the most part, a lot of those other three guys have kind of fizzled out, but MJF is red hot right now. They'll be insane if they don't put that belt on him tomorrow night and run with it. He needs a long run, and just let him do what he's going to do, and you'll find plenty of fortune. And honestly, the only other thing that I really hope going forward is that we continue to see two strong companies. I'm seeing a lot more chatter online that maybe the sort of honeymoon period is over for fans in AEW. A lot of people are starting to complain. It doesn't help that there's been all the drama and everything. And honestly, it hasn't been a strong year for them, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Storytelling wise and booking wise.
See, this is where I disagree with you guys completely, but that's okay. Wrestling's subjective.
Well, I think I don't know that it's been a down year for them so much as they were coming off one of their strongest years in that respect. And so maybe it feels underwhelming because everything, it all out this year. I was not nearly as excited about things as I was at All Out the previous year, which in my opinion is one of the best pay-per-views ever.
And you went to both, right? So you were in the audience for both.
Yeah,
Did you notice the reaction was different? In live, did you notice that? Or
I didn't. It wasn't sustained throughout the night. Now, I have never been part of a crowd that was as crazy for the Acclaimed as that one was that night. I mean, people were losing their minds over the Acclaimed. But for the most part, it didn't seem like it was a sustained reaction throughout the night like it was the year previous. But anyway, the momentum maybe is starting to come off of AEW a little bit. And I don't want to see them backslide and we get a WCW situation where everything just goes straight to hell. And we're back to just having one company. We need two strong companies to continue to make this worth watching.
Valid point. Yeah, agreed.
I think part of it is they just need to balance the egos that are in that company.
Right.
Well, they also need to not give too much control. There needs to be a fine balance, right?
You balance the egos by putting guys like Punk in charge.
Absolutely, because he has no ego. That's the one thing that's great about CM Punk. He's just really humble.
He's selfless. All he wants is his muffins from Mindy's Bakery, and we're good.
That's it.
The fact that he went on about that for so long.
And it's funny because I had no idea that he lives a straight edge lifestyle. No idea. He's never mentioned it once in his 25 years of wrestling. Right, Rob?
Yeah, he keeps all that he keeps it very, very.
He keeps it private.
It's all kept close. Yeah.
Right. Did you have anything else you wanted to add, Rob?
No, that's it.
All right, Scotty, too hottie.
All right, so going forward, like Rob had said, I want to see this competition between WWE and AEW continue to exist side by side to innovate each other, to challenge each other, to just make each other better. Look at what both companies need to look at what the other one is doing and just kind of compete and just do what they can to stay relevant. Another point is even in AEW or even in WWE, they do have a very strong roster for this, but the women's division needs to be focused on more. I feel like there are some amazing talents in both companies, and WWE is kind of going the route more of what I want to see, where they're finally giving a little bit more attention to lesser known wrestlers and bringing them up in the female wrestling industry. I forget her name right now, but she was just in the not this last pay-per-view, but the one before that. Start with an L, I think, but she was in the Chucky TV series.
I don't know. I haven't watched enough.
I think Liv Morgan was
Liv
on
Morgan.
Liv
yes,
Morgan.
yes, yes.
Liv Morgan. Sorry. Okay. Yes. I know who
Because
Liv
I had
Morgan
never
is.
even heard of her, and then all of a sudden she like came out of nowhere, like to me, because like I say, I don't watch WWE.
Oh, yeah, that's true. If you don't watch it, you wouldn't have heard of her for sure.
And so like hearing her just all of a sudden becoming like coming up to that like level at the pay-per-view matches and stuff like that, like that's what I want to see more of. Like, and WWE is going that route. I want to see AEW do that and just kind of strengthen what they have, because they have some really strong female wrestlers.
Mhm.
They have really good talent there, and they have some really good homegrown talent there, and they need to work on that, because Britt Baker is fucking top notch. Jamie Hayter, top notch. Saraya, well, I guess we'll see tomorrow, but she was
Oh, well,
fucking
Paige
top
is.
notch. Yeah,
I'm sure
was,
she'll be good, right?
Yeah. like she was amazing back in the day. And so like I want to see that. I want to see that improve in both companies. And other than that, like I just want there to be kind of like I guess for more like AEW, less backstage drama. Focus on just like focus on what you have, get your egos in check, go forward.
Get rid of the elite. Yep.
I mean,
That's obviously the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny
I mean,
Omega.
I do have to say the elite, Kenny Omega aside, like I won't say anything about Kenny Omega, but Young Bucks, they do have a bit of an ego.
I think that's more of an act, though.
I think
I
it
don't
might
think that's
be. Like,
who they are.
Once again, that's where I was saying like they
Right.
do AEW does bring kayfabe to life a lot more than
Yeah.
WWE does, so it's hard to tell.
Like, I don't
But-
really know people's personality in AEW, I'll be honest. Like, besides like people that don't have a personality and they try to fake one when they're out there, and you're like, you're probably not like that because you probably don't have a personality at
Right.
all. But if you're like a really good heel, I don't know. I have a hard time. Like, I don't like how much of that is true, how much of that is false.
Right, kind of like like where MJF, it's like okay,
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time like realizing who's the real person here.
Right.
I'm not sure
Um,
he knows.
Yeah, props to him, by the way. That's a huge commitment to maintain that kind of personality and rip up kids' pictures when they
Which-
draw shit for you. At
Yeah, I was just gonna say
fucking
like
cons.
that.
So
that's
good.
Like,
That was my friend, actually. His daughter, that picture that he fucking
Right.
ruined, that was one of my good friend's daughters. She drew that, hand drew that, and took it to him to sign, and he fucking just all over it. And
Right.
She loved every second of it.
That's so good.
Right.
Yeah, you've got to be real careful when you purchase a meet and greet when you're taking your kid to see
Yeah.
MJF. You've got to know what's coming.
Yeah.
or any
have you
heel
guys-
for that matter,
have you-
right?
Have you guys seen MJF's cameo? You know,
No.
cameo where you can
No.
get
Oh yes.
celebrities.
Yes.
So MJF charges here in Australia about $700 for a 30-second clip, and his intro video is, you're probably asking yourself why I'm charging so much. It's simple. I don't like you. That's it.
I mean, I would pay
It's
money
smart.
to have him insult me.
Right?
Right?
Right? That's pretty good.
That's amazing.
Did you want to add anything else, Scotty?
Nope, that was pretty much it for me.
So I think we've all echoed it. Here's the thing. We have a chance right now to go back to what wrestling was in the late 90s. Tim brought it up right at the beginning. We have a chance. Impact couldn't do it. Ring of Honor couldn't do it. New Japan is too far removed. People can't get access to it. AEW, you've been given the fucking gauntlet. Here's your chance to
Mhm.
actually come and be a viable option for wrestling fans. And WWE, now that Vince is removed, and props to Vince, I agree with Rob for everything he said about what Vince has done. It is a new era.
Yep.
And we need to get rid of what I want to see. Please stop putting old wrestlers in fucking matches that shouldn't be wrestling.
Mhm.
Please stop making me watch these gentlemen do it. Somebody come in and tell them it's not a fucking good idea. We don't see Trish Stratus come in and do this shit. You know why? Because she's fucking smart. She's running a yoga studio in Toronto, making tons of fucking dough. That's what she's doing with her like 2 fucking kids. So I'm tired of seeing that. Let's change that shit because it's sad and it's depressing and it's scary.
Except
let's
Sting, because Sting's amazing.
Sting, I
Sting
think,
can
just gotta
pull it
do
off
something, yeah.
though. The difference with
Yeah.
Sting is that he can pull it off. Someone like we know who I'm talking about without
Yeah.
seeing the actual person.
Yeah.
There's a certain individual who keeps coming back, even with Jeff Jarrett. As much as I actually do like Jeff Jarrett, I agree with you, Tim. I like Jeff Jarrett. I've liked him through when he was with Road Dogg and he stole Road Dogg's song and he went to WCW. Like, I like Jeff Jarrett. I liked him in Impact as well. I think he's a fucking excellent heel. But I'm careful when I see old guys like this in the ring. Their role has to be to mentor. Chris Jericho does this like a fucking boss. He puts people over every single time. Like when he came down to the ring, when Daniel Garcia was like shaking hands with Daniel Bryan, he was like, "What are you doing? What are you like?" He fucking nails it every single time, any day of the week. And that's what that role needs to be. If you're a mature wrestler coming back, he has the Ring of Honor title on him to give power to it. Not because he's like, "Oh, give me a title." It's like, no, I want to make this mean something. So I'll make it mean something. So I agree. I want to see AEW not run the role of WCW. I want to see them be better. I want to see them thrive, and I want to see WWE get better. And I agree with you, Tim. I think that in 2 years we're going to see much better. And wouldn't it be nice? Like, wouldn't it be nice to be like, "Oh, it's Monday night, I really want to watch Raw. Oh, it's Wednesday night, I really want to watch Dynamite. Or it's Friday night, I really want to watch Rampage." And want to watch 10 hours. So no one ever right now. Though I enjoyed the episode of Rampage we sat through.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it quite a bit. It was a very good episode, but I respect what you're saying, Rob, that the booking isn't as strong as it could be. And let's make that better. You're never going to please every wrestling fan. I've been a wrestling fan for fucking a billion years, and tons of dudes I've hung out with and watched wrestling with. None of them are ever happy. You can show a match that is like the best match in the world. Someone's going to have a fucking problem with it. That's fine. But you need to make it entertaining. So let's make it entertaining, and let's make real two companies that are strong. And I'm happy if they do Ring of Honor, but I agree. I think you guys have given me more insight tonight. I do think it should be a separate show. And I'd love to see Impact do something, but I think that one's going to fucking be buried real soon. And that's a shame because there's been some good people in Impact, but I don't think they can keep up. Like, I don't even know how they keep the lights on. I'll be honest. And you know what I mean?
And also,
are they still doing the show on Twitch?
They are. Well, I don't know if they're doing it on Twitch. I know they have it here on Fight Network. I don't subscribe to it because it's so expensive. It's 2 hours, I think, on Tuesday or Thursday. So I don't know. Maybe they do something on Twitch.
You used to be able to watch it on Twitch.
Okay.
Wow. And I want to also give like a quick shout out to just kind of thank AEW for bringing New Japan Wrestling to an American audience with their Forbidden Door pay-per-view. And I hope they continue to do that because there is a lot of great talent that comes from there. And it's just unfortunately underseen because it's not WWE or it's not.
Well, and we don't have access, right?
Yeah.
And and that's the power that WWE's done. It's almost set a curtain. Like, we're the best. No one else is better. You're going to like us no matter what. And now AEW is allowing exposure to other things, but hopefully we have a second nightstand. Maybe this went better than planned.
I love this.
We have another night because I'm never going to go on Tim's show ever. He's asked me never. So
I'm not big on second dates. So we'll see.
I know you've told me, Rob, very much that if we had a one night stand, Rob would never call me the next day. He made it very clear.
Rob, I'm drunk and I'm ready to bang. So are you ready for a second date?
Rob's like, But I very much want to thank our two very special guests that we had here tonight. As much as we may tease them, as much as Tim refers to me as that bitch and refuses to say my name on his show and goes on how he only likes Scott. And how he's asked me to be on the show, but I refuse to be on there. I know it's actually because Tim has an undying love for me, and that's why. So it's okay, Tim. I understand, and I love you too. So, but I would like to thank both of them for being here. But why don't you guys pimp your stuff because you're fucking bosses. So, Tim, you go first.
Oh, thank you so much. I always love you. No matter how much shit I give you. It's funny, this podcast was a lot more clean than I expected.
It's because we talk smack in the chat because I turn it up.
Yeah.
That's not actually how I feel or who I am.
If anyone saw our chat, I think we'd all be canceled.
Yeah, we would be.
Yeah.
Should I say to Rob and the stuff that Rob says back to me alone? Like
But thank you guys. Thank you so much for having me on this one night stand. You can check me out at For Dummies. I do another show called Wrestling for Dummies, which is on the same feed there, which is me just spilling my guts about wrestling. So if you like this, check out that. one day maybe I'll have, I don't know, Scott and Rob on.
You know, Tim, this didn't take much to organize. Remember how you said that the time zones didn't work and I did it in one shot? Remember? Do you remember,
Yeah,
Tim?
you have to cater for one person. It's going to be easier now with
Daniel's
Daniel
gone.
not-
Fuck Daniel. No one cares.
Yeah.
Fuck Luffy.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
Fuck that. Fuck that mushroom.
But yes, there's where you can find me. And thank you guys always for having me on.
Such a pleasure, Tim. You're one of my favorite podcasters besides Rob, because Rob's here.
One of my favorite people. I just love you, Tim.
But Tim's shows are the
Love you
best.
too.
Like Horror for Dummies. If you're not a fucking Patreon, sign up, man. It is like Tim is the hardest working podcaster, honestly. 31 days of horror. This motherfucker recorded 31 different podcast commentaries on different films, which is pretty impressive, especially because he's
Still tired.
like, I don't know how you did it, Tim. Honestly, like, I don't know how you do it, honestly. And like, a shout out to your wife who takes care of your kids, like, because she's doing that while you're doing that shit. So, and the other lovely gentleman we have here is Rob Humphreys, who knows a lot, is a very intelligent individual, and it was really nice to have him on here tonight. So, Rob, do you want to pimp your stuff as well?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why Tim got to go first.
Oh, because he treats me like a person, Rob. That's why.
First of all, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the invite. A big fan of Tim's show, Horror for Dummies, and so it was nice to hang out with him. Also a big fan of Friday Nightmares. I do really love listening to you guys. My favorite thing to do is to comment in our chat while I'm listening along, just to point out all the things that you get wrong.
Can we mention that you listen to my other podcast and tell me how
no.
I'm wrong there too?
Yeah. I let you know when you're wrong there.
You're letting me
too.
know all the time. Like, that
Yeah.
it's my fault that you watch movies.
You made those poor people watch Winchester.
Dude, it was. I told you why I did that.
But you can I do have two shows you can listen to. You can catch me on Slasher Radio or over on This Horror Life. Both of them can be found wherever podcasts are found.
And they're awesome shows. Rob is very, very knowledgeable. He's being very humble right now, but he is a great podcaster.
I don't function well with compliments.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Can I just quickly I just want to apologize to Rob. Rob, I'm sorry, man. I've been sleeping on Slasher Radio for the longest time, but this week I've done a little deep dive on Slasher Radio, and I'm fucking loving that show, man. I'm really digging it.
That one tends to get a little
Not more than
longer.
Friday Nightmares, though, right, Tim?
Friday Nightmares, I'm up to date, and same with This Horror Life, I'm up to date. But Slasher Radio, I it's just a podcast that I keep reminding myself I've got to listen to, but I keep forgetting. And then this week, I've listened to one episode. I'm like, I'm kind of hooked. This is great.
Well, thank you. It's a fun time.
It is. Your interview with Art the Clown was fucking amazing, even though you weren't there half the time.
I was there for half of it.
Where was he? Where were you?
I fell asleep.
Seriously?
Yeah.
On the podcast?
No. We were supposed to interview him at 3 p.m. and I fell asleep and I woke up and it was 3:15.
Oh,
So I joined
okay.
halfway through the interview.
Nice.
There were two other hosts on the show, so they
Yeah, they're fine. They carried it. It's
they basically
fine.
just talked shit about me while I wasn't there anyway.
Aww.
And then David Howard Thornton told me to sit in a corner because I liked Halloween Ends.
It's okay. No, we don't bring that up on this show, Tim. It's okay.
That's right. I forgot.
It's okay, Tim. This is a
Don't
safe
make
space.
Tim upset.
It's a safe space, Tim.
I mean, it's easy to make fun of Rob. The man wears Crocs.
Oh, I
That's
do
right.
love.
Right?
I do love my Crocs. I can't wait to get to the beach.
Yeah. Big move for you coming up, huh?
Mhm.
It's exciting times. Well, as you know, Scotty and I are proud to be part of the Legion Podcast Network. We are part of underneath the Kill the Cast feed. This is our one night stand wrestling show, but I don't know. Who knows? Maybe we'll do this more. I would like to. I thought this was a lot of fun.
This was a
This is
blast.
Hopefully, Tim and Rob come back. Maybe we'll invite Don and Ellie. Maybe
Yeah.
Don would be interested.
Yeah, let's
right?
bring Don into the fold.
We're all
We could start
about-
we could start our own wrestling horror community.
Oh,
With
fuck
this.
yeah, we could.
We sure could, right? We could compete
I'd-
with that Wrestling for Dummies podcast.
Who are they?
People are like, God, this one Aussie guy sounds the same on both podcasts. Anyway, we are proud members, as I said, of the Legion Podcast Network. If you would like to be a Patreon and sign up for all their bonus stuff, like, I don't know, codes and special episodes, Scotty has one question for you.
What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for?
And what are you waiting for? Sign up for, please listen to Horror for Dummies and Slasher Radio and This Horror Life today. Thank you for listening. I hope you had a great time. And we'll be back next time with, I don't know, some fucking random horror movies that these two will watch and then complain to us later on their shows how they didn't like them, or in the chat how like I'm too woke and Scott likes everything and Tim's number one Speak No Evil is now in his bottom 10 because he didn't like it. You can listen more about that.
We can discuss that on another podcast. I'll debate that movie with you.
Oh no, I think you have a valid point for thinking what you think, Tim. I know what you're talking about. But anyway, you need to listen to Horror for Dummies to hear more. So thank you, gentlemen, and good night.
Good night.